It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Locke goes out of the gun, throws right side quickly, two neighbors out in space, and he's going to dart inside the 20, slips on the tackle, 10, 5, touchdown. Locke looking to his right, rescanning, throw open in the middle of the field. That's a first down. They're at the 10, they're at the 5, and they're going to score a touchdown with Darius Slayton. Locke looking over this Colts defense, 4 down lineman, takes a snap, looks to his left, dances in the pocket, exits it to the right side, throws wide open, touchdown. New York with the score. That time it's Wan'Dale Robinson, the receiver out of Kentucky. And the Giants have scored 20 points in the first half. They only are averaging 14 on the season. Fresh set of downs now for the Giants. Locke on play action, bootlegs to his right. Quick throw. Neighbors gets out of 2 tackles, 50, 40, down the near sideline, 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown. Locke shuffles up in the pocket, rolling left, looking to run, cuts up, and he dives into the end zone for a touchdown. Drew Locke has accounted for 5 touchdowns today.
5 time, 5 time, 5 time, 5 time, 5 time.
Throw for that many touchdowns and score that many points. I know going into the game they haven't scored 30 points all season. They hadn't won at home all season, and extremely disappointing performance by all of us.
It's a tough situation, obviously, when you're out of the playoff hunt.
Defensively, putrid. I am disappointed as an analyst and as a former Indianapolis coach with the effort that we saw today with so much opportunity on the line, and that's what we go out there, and that's the product that we put on display.
On the sortest defense I've ever seen. Drew Locke scored 5 touchdowns on you. And then you have a Colts lose the playoff spot. And guess what? Chris Ballard can throw up his hands and say, oh, you can't blame me. Andrew Luck retired on me 5 years ago. What do you want me to do?
These players should be ashamed of themselves representing the Indianapolis Colts in this city and this organization, because that is not the standard in which we play with at the Indianapolis Colts.
I still have a very strong belief in what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we're going to get there. It's easy to vacillate. Easy to vacillate and go with what the world wants you to do. You either believe in something or you don't. This is what we believe. If it gets me fired, so be it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Fitting. To me, very, very fitting that it was the Colts pulling their own plug on a season that didn't deserve 9-8. It didn't deserve Monday, December 30th, the 3-game parlay that's needed to make the playoffs. No. It deserved the embarrassment of yesterday and what should be the final straw of the Chris Ballard era, the Gus Bradley era, and we'll see if the list deserves to be any longer than that. Good Monday morning to you. Mark Dykton, as always, tremendous on that opening montage. Andy Sweeney, your timeline was one of a kind yesterday.
And listen, I know we're going to have fun today. I'm not over it. I was worried last night. I went to bed. It was third quarter of the Sunday night football game, okay? So I didn't stay up for this entire thing.
It's a hell of a Sunday night game.
I know it was. Guys, I was worried I wasn't going to sleep. Like, that's where I was, okay? I tried drinking a few alcoholic beverages. I tried to get on the treadmill at one point yesterday to work out the bad energy.
Good for you. That was a 4:30 p.m. treadmill.
After a couple bush lights, that's where I was. I do love the usage of the word vacillate there from Chris Ballard. An absolute disaster, obviously, for both teams. We'll have fun with the Giants side with me, but if you wake up and you went to bed, God bless you, and you're a Colts fan, I mean, you have to feel like your franchise has hit rock bottom. And guess what, KB? That's because yesterday the Indianapolis Colts absolutely hit rock bottom with one of the more disappointing, embarrassing performances that we've seen in many seasons. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's on the Mount Rushmore, certainly, of that. We will examine all of it today. It's a shame that we can't talk about the Pacers' effort a little bit more here on this Monday morning. Rick Carlisle, of course, will join us coming up tomorrow as the Pacers win the season series over the defending world champs yesterday in Boston. That was some audio there that Mark Dykton cut up there. Marlon Jackson on Wish TV, for those that did not see that clip yesterday, obviously a former player there, and I thought some very candid comments with Anthony Calhoun yesterday. And again, I had some I thought interesting emotions watching all of that unfold yesterday, there was a little bit. I don't know if it was the opening kickoff of the second half. Maybe it was the 337th missed tackle of the season for the Colts. Jonathan Taylor hitting the ball on the side of the helmet. Felt like I was like, no, Max, put your hands out, buddy. You can catch this.
Not getting a first down, being a yard short, sure. All those things.
Like eerily similar to Peyton Manning Saturday Night Live when he hits the kid in the side of the head. I almost felt an ounce of relief. And that is a really weird word that I have not been able to get out of my head, Andy, for the last probably 12 hours or so. Like, this has got to be it, right? Like, that was the Ryan Walters bucket game, right?
Right.
For the Colts? Was it not? I mean, like...
Yeah. If you want to change, yesterday was a good thing.
That's the embarrassment we've talked about of, like, you know, after the Denver game, you and I said this on several occasions of, yes, you have 3 extremely winnable games on your schedule. You also have 3 opportunities for utter embarrassment. And you flirted with it against Tennessee and blowing a 38-7 lead almost. Yesterday, you said, watch our embarrassment, hold my beer, and we'll go ahead and shotgun about 9 others in allowing 45 points to the bleeping Giants. Drew Lock looking like Drew Brees, the Colts tackling air. Again, the Jonathan Taylor issues, several of them. It was an odd feeling for me to watch that thinking, there is no way Jim Irsay could witness what he just witnessed and think, we're going to run it back.
Yeah, listen, I understand why relief comes to your mind. The way I viewed it, now, I don't think relief was the word, but when something like yesterday happens, the jig is up. You know, you can lose to the Green Bay Packers early on, or you can look like crap against the Minnesota Vikings. But, KB, those are good football teams, even though yesterday, Mark, you had to like it. Green Bay got kicked around for about 3 quarters. But you understand what I'm saying. You can say, well, you know, even though they played Malik Willis in week 2, you know, Green Bay this, Green Bay that, you can write it off. It's a good team. And then when you barely beat all these bad teams, we sit here like knuckleheads and say, wow, what a great last-second drive by Anthony Richardson, even though the team had played like garbage basically the entire game leading up to them. But yesterday, there was nowhere to hide. You lost the game, you got embarrassed, and the Giants are terrible. And, you know, I mean, Drew Lock, I mean, it's funny. Drew Lock is the 5th player in NFL history with 300 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown, and a passer rating above 155. He's done it. Josh Allen's done it. Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. There's nowhere to hide on this loss. And there's nowhere to hide when, and the reason it's gutless is they had still something to play for. And to look that bad on just basically every phase of the game, including, by the way, special teams and Matt Gay. I mean, Shane Steichen had a terrible day. That's my thing. For you, it was relief. For me, I guess it was relief that there is no pivot. You didn't play like crap and pull it out at the end, because they've done that a number of times where they do this magic trick where they play bad, but Anthony Richardson has a drive at the end of the game. And so we think there's something there that is not there. They got stripped down yesterday for the football team that they are. And unfortunately now, for me, it's not just let's get rid of Gus Bradley and another assistant or 2 and let's run this thing back. No, you're further away from winning. You're further away from the playoffs in the AFC South than you were last year. That is fact.
You know, the NFL expanded their postseason in 2020 to 7 teams. The Colts benefited from that. They were the 7th team in 2020. Since then, with, again, 7 of 16 teams in each conference making the postseason, the Colts are in their worst playoff drought in 30 years. These are just things that Jim Irsay cannot continue to ignore. And there's a phrase that I've used, and I raise my hand because I've been wrong on it, of I feel like there's an acceptance of mediocrity within the franchise that is really sad that is there. And again, that would be a compliment to what the franchise has really been in the Chris Ballard era. They haven't been even mediocre. They've been below that line. We make fun of upper quartile. It's not even sniffing that. Again, you can point to all these different numbers, and, you know, we've done it, and we'll sure do it today. But this is a franchise that continues to be in the bottom half of the AFC. That's exactly where they're at, in the lowliest division in all of football. And again, relief is probably not the right word to use necessarily, but
no, but I get it.
It's just that has got to be the final straw. And for us to sit here on a Monday morning, 72 hours removed from the phrase "really sore" being used by the head coach to let us know why Anthony Richardson wasn't starting one of the most important games of his young football career, for us to have that way on the back burner throughout these 3 hours shows you it took quite the level of embarrassment for that to occur. And that's exactly what happened. I had forgotten until about a month ago Drew Lock was even on the New York Giants.
He's been terrible. I told you he threw a pick 6 yesterday, and he was damn near perfect.
And the scramble for the touchdown at the end was one of the more slower moving moments of just like, oh my gosh. As soon as he started to take off, it wasn't like, is it going to get in? It was how and who will miss the tackle.
Exactly. How many guys?
That will allow him to get into the end zone. And sure enough, it happened. The Colts entered yesterday, by the way, with 20 more missed tackles than any team in the league.
I feel bad for Colts fans.
20 more.
I do. Listen, they have tried to rally around this team. They have tried to rally around coaches. And, I know it's 7:35. We'll dive more into this. But I am very much... when you have a game like yesterday, but yesterday to me magnified other issues. It wasn't just, well, we're going to fire Shane Steichen because he lost to the New York Giants. To me, it's not that. To me, it's, and again, I know we're going to get to it, but the messaging about him being really sore, I'm sorry. That's complete garbage from Shane Steichen. Be better. You've been a head coach for 2 years in the NFL. You don't like meeting with the media. You don't want to talk to the media. You don't want to talk about injuries. So be it. Well, get over it, big boy. You get paid millions of dollars to coach football. You got to go out there a couple times a week and have a 6-minute press conference. And there's no reason that I leave the messaging around the benching and the messaging around some of these injuries, including Sunday, and think that Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson have a good relationship. They're going to have to do something that proves that to me, because I don't feel that way. And in the end, the fans being crapped on. In the end, you're a season ticket holder, and I hope you sold your tickets to the Steelers or the Bears or the Lions or the Bills, because Sunday, that ticket ain't going to be worth a damn thing. And you're, like I said, you're further away than you were last year. And we are, listen, I know Sunday, next Sunday night and Monday, that's Black Monday in the NFL. And I hate to say it, but we are going to find out in the next 7 days if Jim Irsay, if he's still running the team, the Irsay family, if they care about winning. We're going to see if they care about winning, because this team doesn't need to run it back. They don't need a tinker here or there. They need big changes at big spots on this team. And guess what? Everybody knows it.
When we sit here 1 week from now at 7:13 in the morning, there needs to be at least two major changes to the franchise.
I would agree.
I will get to those throughout the show.
I would agree with you.
But that, to me, is the bare minimum of what needs to happen here a week from Monday. And frankly, and I don't say this lightly, Jim Irsay has lied to his fan base. He has lied to his fan base on multiple occasions over the past several seasons. And you need to finally admit that you have lied. And now your actions will speak a lot louder than words. Because actional change over the last few years has been, well, you know what? Jeff Saturday sounds good on that morning show with Jake and Kevin. How about if he comes out of the old ESPN worldwide leader and join us for an interim stint?
He leaves first take early to go take a head coaching job. Yeah.
But no, we'll run it back with Chris Ballard. Sure. And you know what? Here's Gus Bradley continuing to hold his job. And now we see the embarrassment that yesterday was. So I apologize to you, Andy. I know that one on several levels
it crushed me.
The New York Giants fall to the 4th overall pick heading into Week 18.
What do they start? What do they say? Meteors, stars in the night, ships collide, ships passing in the night.
Yeah.
I swear to you, early. It was Friday. And we'll take a break here. It was Friday, and Anthony Richardson wasn't going to play. And I told you I had a buddy who had a choice between the Colts or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his Eliminator League. And I talked with him Saturday.
I forgot about him.
And then on Saturday, I go, listen, man. I go, you can't take the Colts here. I picked the Colts to win 33-9, and I regret it. Richardson's not playing. It's not even about the quarterback. Like, it's not even about AR. I was like, I have this bad feeling that the Colts could lay down like dogs, and I can't have anything nice. So now I get the next Joe Alt, who's not even as good as Joe Alt. No offense to Joe Alt.
Giants got their quarterback, though. Drew Lock looks amazing. Sign him to an extension.
Did you? I want to know this, Mark. Drew Lock is famous for rapping Young Jeezy on the sideline.
Yeah, that's the song that's in our rejoinder.
Is that why you made it the rejoinder?
Oh, yes, of
Boy,
course.
You're a sick man.
I am.
And a beautiful man, all at the same time.
That was an excellent rejoinder.
What a mess. What a mess.
I don't know how we'll get to it, different parts of the day, because I don't think many people want to talk about the game. But Jonathan Taylor, ball off the side of his helmet.
It's one of the great moments of the season.
Not diving for the first down when he clearly would have had it at a critical second-half juncture of the game.
Not reaching on a fourth down to try to get the first down.
And then the 2-point conversion of, Boise State, Statue of Liberty, and
that was a good play call,
flat-out drop.
I thought that actually might work.
As Jonathan Taylor, again, has his career high in drop percentage this season. For how good of a runner he is, there are so many just head-scratching moments for a $5 million running back, $42 million running back.
Well, then he injures his ankle in the third quarter, and given that they don't have any other running backs, they had to put him out there to run the middle for 3 yards.
Hey, Alec Pearson, Michael Pittman Jr. were great.
Yes, they were.
I thought they were outstanding. And I know we won't have moments to mention that a whole lot today.
No game balls today.
They were very, very good.
239-1070 will take your phone calls coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Still, weekend headlines. We'll get to that, obviously. We'll get to our GOATs of the weekend as well. Coming up on the other side, what did Shane Steichen say about that debacle yesterday? And also guys like Zaire Franklin, of course, very vocal after the loss yesterday. We'll let you hear that next. Appreciate you waking up with us. It's a Monday right here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Well, the embarrassment of yesterday sealed the Colts' fate in 2024. No playoff appearances now for 4 straight years. No playoff wins for 6 straight years. That is the longest drought for this franchise in 30 years. Andy Sweeney, I assume that's where you will begin this morning checkdown.
Yeah, it's either that or Braden Smith. He's the only bright, shining spot we had from Purdue was yesterday. Yeah, like you mentioned, KB, the debacle there in New Jersey yesterday, 45-33, your final. The Colts go on the road, still with the playoff chances in front of them in Week 18, and they absolutely lay an egg, really beat up the majority of the game. No fluke there. Here's Shane Steichen postgame. What did he tell his team?
It's a tough situation, obviously, when you're out of the playoff hunt. But again, I told him, shoot, we got to be professional about it. That's the biggest thing. We got to show up and do our job still with 1 week left.
Yeah, I smiled on that answer, KB, because I'm like, wait a minute, you're worried about how they're going to play in the final week when they have no playoffs. What about when you actually had the playoffs in front of you? Like I mentioned, 45-33 is your final. Here's Zaire Franklin. He was very vocal after the game on the loss in the season as a whole.
It's embarrassing. It's disappointing. We got just flat out beat. Performance we put out defensively just beyond unacceptable. And you can't play like that when you planning on being a playoff team. So we ain't a playoff team.
Again, Drew Lock, 5 touchdowns against that Colts defense yesterday. Week 18 wraps up 1 o'clock Sunday, Lucas Oil.
So went back yesterday. Giants, they get to 21 points with 5 minutes to go in the first half yesterday. They averaged 14 a game. Andy, they scored 45 yesterday in 60 minutes of football. I believe you had to go back like 213 minutes before yesterday's game to find them scoring a total of that amount of points.
Well, they hadn't had it'd been at least 6-7 years since they had a kickoff return, and then they hadn't had a second half kickoff return in 70 years.
So did they have 6 touchdowns yesterday? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had 8?
Yeah, Drew Lock had 5, and then they had the special teams touchdown.
So they had 8 all year at home coming into the game, and they had 6 just yesterday.
We made fun of that. You had the joke on Notre Dame.
Literally.
Riley Leonard's done better there than any quarterback has for the Giants. And by the way, your joking was spot on. You were right.
Effing believable.
And if you notice, me and Mark were talking, if you notice on the first Neighbors touchdown, that's like the Giants is trying to get a couple yards and kick a field goal. Neighbors stopped for like 2 seconds because he thought, wait a minute, no one's within 12 yards of me on this play.
He had to have a target, and I was like, oh, here comes the Neighbors screen to get him into manageable field goal range here. And sure enough, boom, Darius Slayton 3rd and 8. How about the comeback route late in the fourth quarter there? Like the 6-yard comeback route to Neighbors, simple pitch and catch, breaks 3 tackles, gone the rest of the way. All right, great work by the Pacers yesterday in Boston. Certainly a far cry from what we saw on Friday. They got blown out Friday. Then all of a sudden, Andrew Nembhard reappears on Sunday, and one of easily their best wins of the season. 123-114. Tyrese Halliburton away from home, 31 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. I thought the 2 lottery picks, Jarris Walker and Benedict Mathurin, had some key moments as well. And again, this team it feels different with Nembhard in the fold. I thought it was pretty fitting post-game. TJ McConnell interrupting the Jeremiah Johnson, Andrew Nembhard post-game interview of, boy, do we miss this guy. Nembhard's return to the lineup, I think, has sparked some things. And, Andy, I said to you a couple weeks ago, before that Western road trip, can you go 4-3? Because at some point, you've got to flip it.
Right.
You've had the bad losses. You can't just survive. And so far, this stretch, the 3 games out west, now the Thunder, and 2 with Boston, you're 4-2. Tomorrow, the matinee against the Bucks, that'll be the 7th and final game of what I think is the most difficult stretch all season long. So, big response by Rick Carlisle's bunch yesterday against the Celtics.
And then they get the Miami Heat. Did you see yesterday one of the Thompson brothers throw Tyler Hero to the ground? We got to play that sound maybe at some point, either today or tomorrow. Tyler Hero, did you see it? He got thrown.
I saw it.
Kind of like a wrestling move.
Yeah, I thought it was a great move, something we'd see probably coming up in February, right, inside of Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah.
And I thought the Hero sound was excellent postgame.
Yeah, we might.
Tyrese Halliburton's AAU teammate, right?
I think it was. So, and Halliburton was good, obviously, yesterday. As you mentioned, college basketball-wise, IU and Purdue both in action yesterday. Braden Smith, the story. 34 points, 12 assists, had 3-4 steals in the win yesterday as Purdue tops Toledo by 19, 83-64. And then Indiana, hey, what do you do? What do you say? It's another one of these wins that doesn't really help your net ranking when you already had a crappy non-conference schedule. IU does win 77-68 over Winthrop, who, by the way, is just 10-5 on the season. Miles Rice, 18 points in the win. But Umar Ballo not playing in the game, then Mike Woodson not wanting to talk about it after the game, and then people on Twitter putting pictures up of Ballo out at Upstairs Bar and other places in Bloomington while the game was going on. So that was basically your crappy yesterday if you're a Colts and you're a Hoosiers fan.
Well, two things. First off, Braden Smith, the first ever 30-point 10-assist game in Purdue history. I mean, it's just, for people that labeled him a Zach Edey merchant, I think he's proving a bit otherwise on that front. And then the Umar Ballo side of it, as a man that has spent many hours looking, praying, hoping, standing in the corner of Upstairs Bars at sports all around Bloomington, I don't know if I fault the man. I don't know if I blame him.
Oh, man, it's too good, man. It's just too good.
How great is the picture? Like this nice woman, like smiling for the camera, and here's 7-foot Umar Ballo in the background.
That's the thing, he can wear sweats and have a hood up, but people know who you are when you're 7 feet tall.
You're saying he's not
basketball player.
Are you saying he's not blending in?
You're not blending into a bunch of 5'10" dudes who look like me and Mark Dyke did on a Saturday
and
night.
I'll be honest, a Saturday night over winter break, you're going to get some desperate humans in those establishments. So shout out to Umar Ballo for trying to shoot a shot there. And then lastly, no real easy transition, but this happened on Friday. The passing of, I would say, certainly a voice that, just when I think of sports voices in a young age, for me, Greg Gumbel is one of the ones that certainly comes to mind.
1,000%.
The second Sunday in March every year when he starts to reveal that bracket. I mean, hell, I got chills right now just thinking about it. I think I forgot, Andy, just how much Gumbel has done. I didn't realize he was on a call of the Tuck Rule game. Patriots, Raiders,
Boy,
obviously the Adam
point,
Vinatieri kick in that one is iconic. Certainly, you just list all the sports accomplishments that he has had. It is an incredibly long list. I thought some of the tributes, broadcast-wide, not just CBS-related, I thought were really beautiful in so many different sporting events that we saw over the weekend.
Yeah, I can hear him say, and in the Midwest and playing in Kansas City, your overall number one seed, ... I can hear it in that he is synonymous in the later years with that to me, and obviously he called so many big things. So a rest in peace there. I was going to bring that up later in the show. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, when we all should have known it was over and what should happen going forward. We'll take your calls as well. 239-1070. Appreciate you waking up with us. Wake up call. It's a Monday on the Fan.
Gonna need at least 2 changes from the Colts. We'll hit on that here throughout this Monday as the Colts, again, are eliminated from the postseason here. They'll have a meaningless Week 18 game. It was announced late last night. I know everybody was on pins and needles awaiting what time the Colts would play here in Week 18. Do you guys want to take a guess? I know, you probably thought prime time, standalone windows, Brady and Burkhardt, Kevin Harlan maybe. Sure. I don't know, Nance and Romo.
How great was Kevin Harlan on the Cincinnati Bengals game on Saturday? Does it get better than Kevin Harlan on that game?
He was excellent. What a wild game that was.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
Colts, Jags. Drum roll, please. 1 o'clock Sunday.
1 o'clock. I like how you tweeted out, surprised it's not on True TV. Hey, leave True TV and the reruns of Impractical Jokers alone. I don't mind popping on Impractical Jokers when nothing else is on a Tuesday night. Come on.
The good thing is if you want to bring
the Fox game for those that are just scrambling to get to their DVR here, which I know a lot of people are.
Well, you want to, end of the, starting the new year, you want to bring your kids out to a game that's going to be affordable. Colts Jaguars is up your alley. Hey, it's like $10 to get in the door right now.
No kidding. That's the time. I mean, that's what the Colts played in yesterday. Was the Giants, a bunch of kids.
You'll pay more for fees than you will for the outright
and
ticket price. I guess, and I say this in all seriousness, I believe the Colts want the 49ers to beat the Lions tonight. Guys, that's where we're at, by the way.
Yeah, for draft stock.
We are now looking at draft
you have
stuff.
to.
So,
yeah, you want to. You want Miami to win next week.
I don't think the Colts can really go up much. Maybe we'll examine this more tomorrow. I'm sorry. This is the reality.
We got 4 months to examine
I know. I'm sorry. But
the draft's in April.
I can't ignore it. Right now, they are 12th in the draft order. I think 11th is the highest they can get. They could fall, actually.
Sure, they could.
A significant amount. I don't know if I'm ready for that conversation much more than the 30 seconds I just gave it right there. But if you're wanting rooting interest tonight, 49ers over Man Campbell's Lions.
239-1070. We'll take your calls coming up top of the hour. I want to get your thoughts on here in just a second, kind of what you want to see happen. I think, unfortunately, the game is one thing. I think big picture stuff with the Colts still is going to rule, obviously, as we go today. So I teased this, and I think every Colts fan felt this. And yesterday, again, for people that don't know, I grew up until I was 10 in Western New York. I am a Giants fan. And for the last 10, I am 40 years old. And for the last 10 years, the Colts have been terrible as well. The Giants have made the playoffs one time, and they've scored, and they've won one playoff game, and that was against Kirk Cousins. Okay, so it counts, but it's Kirk Cousins. And so it was terrible watching yesterday through that prism, and it was terrible watching through the Colts prism of what the hell are you guys doing? We talked about it segment number 1. The flip side to it all, KB, is if you wanted change, you maybe needed something like yesterday to happen. But the second possession of the game, so, the Colts moved the ball, which I figured they would do, and Flacco throws the pick. I think he was trying to throw it away. Regardless, he throws a pick. I mean, that's a play you can't make. We need to talk about it. Flacco, you got to be better there. But it's the second possession of the game. The Colts are again moving the ball. It's a what is it? It's a third down.
It's like 3rd and 8. I want to say.
3rd and 8 is exactly what it is. And they run Jonathan Taylor early second quarter. Okay, they run Jonathan Taylor up the middle, and they pick up 5 yards. A little draw play up the middle. It's fine. And this is when I knew it was done. And then they go to the sideline, and Shane Steichen sends in Matt Gay. And I'm thinking, number one, how cowardly is this? Number two, Shane Steichen just doesn't believe in anybody except for his field goal kicker, who's 3 of 8, beyond 50 yards on the season. And so you run on 3rd down and long to set up a 4th and 3. You can run again, a little short play to Michael Pittman, who had a great day. You find Josh Downs in the seam against this terrible New York Giants defense. And it's 4th and 3, and you send out Matt Gay for a 54-yard field goal, and he misses it. And at that point, I looked at my wife, and I said, you're going to have to maybe at some point leave the room. because it's going to happen. It's inevitable at this point that the Colts are going to play like dogs, and this is going to happen, and they're going to nuke their season along with the Giants' first-round pick. And KB, that ball went up, and Matt Gay shanked it, and I thought they're going to do it. They're going to sit here, and they're going to lose to this crappy football team, and lo and behold, they did. I mean, every Colts fan had to feel it on that 3rd and 4th down, right? I'm not the only one.
I actually thought Kenny Albert was seeing things when he all of a sudden was like, and here comes Matt Gay on the field to try a field goal. I'm like, wait, they're not going for it?
Why would you not go for
There's
it?
no way.
Yeah.
Shane Steichen? Like, a 3rd and 8 run gets you to 4th and 3? I was stunned that they attempted the field goal. I even got to go to earlier, Andy. I thought the I thought the 3rd and 14 screen to Neighbors for the touchdown was just, oh my gosh, here we go. Like, it's going to happen. And then, if you didn't believe it then, how about the 3rd and 8 to Darius Slayton? And he breaks a tackle and scores. And if you didn't believe it then how about 1st and goal from the 22, turning into a touchdown? If you didn't believe it then, how about the 6-yard comeback route to Malik Neighbors, splits 2 tackles, Zaire Franklin, I guess, didn't dive at all to the sideline attempt, and Neighbors is gone down the sideline. And then, if you needed one more slow death, the Drew Lock scramble for a touchdown.
Drew Lock. Oh, man, it's so bad. It really is so bad. Changes, immediate changes. Your thoughts?
I got 2.
Okay.
And it's got to happen a week from Monday. And, again, I said a little bit earlier in the show, it's time for Chris Ballard to stop lying to his fan base and act like your franchise actually has a standard again. And, frankly, he has lied. The lying occurred certainly to all of our ears, 2 weeks before the start of the season when he called Chris Ballard a blue-chip GM. There's nothing on the Ballard resume up until that point, which was, again, 4 months ago before you have now missed the playoffs for a 4th straight year and are in the worst playoff drought your franchise has seen in 30 years. That would indicate that. But you don't have a blue-chip GM. You don't have Michael Jordan missing shots. You don't have the greatest GM hire of the 21st century. And we've gone over the numbers, but I guess just to reiterate for those that have maybe been under a rock, we know the resume. It's 0 division titles. It's 1 playoff win. It's the biggest playoff drought in 30 years. Again, the playoff format has increased in Chris Ballard's tenure, and you still can't make the postseason. 25 teams have won a division title since you last have. It's over 20 have won a playoff game since you last have. And really, if you want to go to a Ballard criteria, Andy, Ballard is a big believer in point differential. He thinks point differential is kind of a good measuring stick to what you are in a season. Well, this year, the Colts in the AFC with 16 teams, they ranked 10th in point differential. If you look at the entire Ballard tenure, they are 18th in point differential. I wasn't born yesterday, but I believe that's not in the upper quartile of where you're at. And if you just look at where this team has finished in the AFC in the 8 years of Ballard, it's 13th, 6th, 10th, 7th, 8th, 15th, 9th last year, and currently they are 10th. So again, none of that screams upper quartile, blue chip GM, however you want to describe it. When you look at his blueprint, he is adamant about trenches and does not have an emphasis on premium positions. And what else is he adamant about? He's adamant about culture. Well, if you want to go to that C word, at this point last season, Andy, we were discussing 2 Colts players getting suspended for multiple games as they were making a playoff push. Where is culture in that? If you want to talk about this season, we have had a lingering and continued question on the maturation of their quarterback, who is a captain on this football team. The standard of playing quarterback in the NFL or being a captain in the NFL, where was your locker room
to
make sure
middle of the season
that was adhered to and not something that all of a sudden in the middle of his second year, you have to bench him and publicly humiliate him and continue to do so, I would argue, because he's not meeting that standard. Again, you want to go to premium positions, Andy, quarterback. Waited way too long on finding an answer post Andrew Luck. And, people can say, hindsight's 2020. No. Go back to the audio. As soon as Andrew Luck retired in 2019, made it very clear. That next draft, you've got to do everything you can. You sat there with the 13th overall pick. And Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts were drafted way after you at 13 overall. And yet you decided to wait on that. You go to wide receiver. The first 3 drafts of Ballard, he drafts 3 wideouts. Those 3 wideouts, Paris Campbell, Deion Kane, and Reese Fountain. You go to left tackle. Anthony Costanzo's flirting with retirement. Puts that on the back burner way too long. You go to the premium positions on the defensive side of the ball. Whether it's edge rusher, whether it's corner, he has taken chances there, and he has swung and missed routinely at those two spots in the draft.
And we yelled and screamed about the secondary. Every single fan yelled and screamed about it. And when Neighbors is running down the sideline and there's missed tackles, it's like, what did you expect? This is what happens.
And again, the stress he puts on the draft is way too much. The reluctance to use other avenues, mainly the early part of free agency, and just the adherence to continuity over anything is just mind-numbing to me. So I guess I would just say this. This should have been done after the 2022 season. It was obvious then. It is once again obvious here as we sit here on December 30th. Do you have any idea what the anniversary of Saturday is? This coming Saturday, January 4th?
Ooh, this coming Saturday. No, I do
not. We
not.
will not have a show, so we can't celebrate it. But
please tell me.
This Saturday, January 4th,
Tell
anybody?
me. No, let's go. Let's see, what'd you say, the 10-year or the 8-year anniversary?
Mark,
oh boy.
Take a stab at January 4th.
I have no idea.
It's the 10-year anniversary of Jim Irsay watching his franchise play a home playoff game.
Oh.
The last time he has watched his franchise play a home playoff game. We've had a swim meet inside of that building since their last was a home
You've
playoff
had an
game.
NBA All-Star game. Yeah.
We've had a basketball event that is not the Final Four with NBA players in it. Since we don't need to list out the musical acts that have been there or the Catholic youth conferences or the band competitions that have been in there. But the question I would have is this. Do you care about your franchise being in the upper quartile or not? Stop lying to your fan base and describing Chris Ballard as a blue chip GM and start acting like there is a real standard of winning once again in Indianapolis. When you get to your owner's box on Sunday afternoon, look up at those banners. See when the last one was put up there. 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So I ask, and it's a plea, and it's probably me on my knees for a lot of Colts fans, and I'm not holding my breath. Let me be clear.
No, I'm not either. That's the problem.
But the time is now. It was here 2 years ago, and it is abundantly clear right now, in no way, shape, or form has Chris Ballard earned a 9th crack at this. It starts at the top of your organization. That is the first change that is needed here coming up a week from today. And if you don't do it, you're continuing to, again, not accept mediocrity, because that would be a compliment to the Ballard era. I don't need to go through where this team is finished in the AFC once again. I just did it a few minutes ago. But the resume is a below-average general manager that in no way deserves a 9th opportunity to somehow get it right. Like, sooner or later, it's like watching young Max Bowen shoot a basketball on his new Fisher-Price goal.
Oh, did he get one? Nice. I like that. Yeah, we got a little tykes.
He can't throw it in the ocean. But sooner or later, the ball will magically bounce, and it'll go in.
You better.
That should not be how you treat your GM. But yet, that is how he has treated his GM. Lying to his fan base. And if he does it for a 9th year, shame on him.
I just don't understand, and this is my overall, and listen, I agree with you. Everything you're saying, I'll give you a standing ovation. I think every Colts fan listening this morning or back on the podcast would agree with you. What I don't understand is, yes, some franchises pull the plug on coaches and general managers maybe a little bit too soon. That's not what's happening here. I don't know why. Is there anyone else in the NFL that is doing what the Colts are doing, that is married to a losing regime and talks about a losing regime like they're not a losing regime? And that's what I don't understand. And this was year 4, okay? And, we can go back to when Andrew Luck retired. It would be a little bit of a different conversation. But that's not what's happening here. And it's like, how many times, I don't know if it's like being in a relationship and you got a buddy who's dating this girl and you don't like her and she's cheating on him. You're saying, hey, fill in the blank. Why are you doing this? It's how I feel. What is the attachment that the Irsay family, and I would love to know how much Jim Irsay is running day-to-day things, by the way, that the Irsay family act like they're indebted to Chris Ballard, or that they're not going to be able to run their franchise, or they're not going to be able to compete because we don't have Chris Ballard. You mentioned, we're all about the trenches. They get no pressure on the quarterback. I mean, yesterday, Drew Lock, how many times this season, KB, have we talked about crappy quarterback, crappy team, getting confidence because you put no pressure? on them. I mean, they started sending corner blitzes late in the fourth quarter when the game was over. It's a 3rd and 6, and you're 15 yards off Malik Neighbors. He's got 100 and some catches on the season. And then we're going to dive into this in about an hour. But Pat McAfee, I mean, he wrote a long tweet last night. Go find it. I'm sure it's still up. Hopefully he didn't take it down. I mean, he called them unwarranted arrogance, laziness, lack of professionalism. He called some of them entitled bums on that team. And listen, he knows. And by the way, he's right when he says those things. The thing that I'm hoping, I'm praying, and this happens, and I used to yell and scream about this on the college level, KB, and that is colleges like Indiana, like IU, their basketball team has been bad the last couple of years, but NIL, and they built a team, and there's a lot of PR. I want the Colts fan, and I tweeted this out yesterday, I want them to feel in a few weeks and months how they feel today. Because it's easy to, you get into the offseason, you have the draft, maybe they do sign a free agent, you get a new defensive coordinator, AR puts out a video where he's slinging the ball, and they start to do this PR movement that things are going to be different next year. Do not buy into it. Teams do this. Every team in the league puts out this PR push, and it works. That's the reason these people get paid a lot of money, to make you feel better that your team, to give you some hope that next year is going to be different. Come buy season tickets because next year is going to be different. It's not going to be different under Chris Ballard. And yesterday and the last 2 seasons, because Shane Steichen will go 2 years with like 1 win over a team above 500, 1 or 2 wins above 500, everything's on the table. If Shane Steichen can't hire or fire his defensive coordinator, that's another reason Chris Ballard needs to be gone. Gus Bradley should have got the Lane Kiffin treatment yesterday on the tarmac. Okay, I mean, they missed so many tackles. They are so non-aggressive. Listen, I know I'm throwing a lot out there. I agree with you. I am just so stunned that the Irsay family is obsessed with keeping a losing regime. I don't understand what the relationship there is. And no Colts fan has to know what is going on, why they do this. Yeah, teams move on, KB. I just don't get it.
It and again, I don't use this phrase lightly. It screams of blackmail. I mean, does it not? I mean, and again, I don't say that just to be some, hot jock radio guy here on a Monday morning, because I don't know the why, to your point, is what I'm saying. If we were in a debate class right now and the teacher said to you, hey, Andy, you get the Chris Ballard needs to go, and Kevin, you get the Chris Ballard deserves to stay, I'd fake COVID for the next week so I wouldn't have to report on that. I have no idea what I put on the poster board.
You go into quarantine for a couple days?
Literally.
Yeah.
I used to hide my medicine when I was younger under the bed. I was so afraid of taking pills, and I blamed it. This is how dumb I was. I blamed on the people that used to live in our house.
I think you've said that before. The Johnson family, they must have left.
I thought that's how it worked.
They must have left the antibiotics under my bed for some reason.
Wait, my dad built those bunk beds? How in the world would the Johnson family have had those bunk beds?
But I think this is what's scary for the Colts fan. Everything yesterday and this morning is what? That's got to be enough for there to be changes.
Well,
but you don't really I don't totally believe that's going to be the case.
Oh gosh, I know. I know.
Sacrificing Gus Bradley is not enough. We agree that's not enough.
No way, shape, or
Gus
form.
Bradley.
And again, that's why watching yesterday, I had this odd feeling of relief. And that is not the word I thought I'd be using here on this Monday morning, but I watched it all unfold. And I don't know, maybe it was the parting of the seas on the opening kickoff of the third quarter. Maybe it was the 1,000th missed tackle of the season. But I thought to myself, it takes this embarrassment. That's the E word that I keep on coming back to. Of as much as I can't predict anything Jim Irsay has ever done, embarrassment is one that it's just hard to get away from. And if I'm trying to play devil's advocate for a second, okay, what does Chris Ballard believe in? Okay, he believes in trench play and he believes in culture.
Right.
Let's just focus on those 2 items for a second. When have you ever said for 1 second that the Colts are elite in the trenches in the 8 years of Chris Ballard? I could give you maybe a year-ish around Phillip Rivers era with that offensive line. Jonathan Taylor, leads the league in okay, maybe
Sure.
there.
Sure.
The defensive line, never.
No.
Never
No.
have you thought that this is an elite unit, that this is a playoff. And again, you've invested endlessly into that position group. So I'll start there, then move to culture. It's a big word. I think it's hard to quantify at times. Do I think it makes sense to have some individually motivated players? Yeah, I could hear that. Right now, you might argue how individually motivated some of these guys are by watching them play. But if you just want to go back to the last couple of years, again, at this point last season, Andy, we're watching, multiple players in that locker room suspended for multiple games at the most critical juncture of the season. And then this year, with your young quarterback who is a captain on the football team with, 13 captains on this team, and they don't make sure that he knows what the standard is to play football in the NFL or be a captain or be a quarterback. Like, okay, if your culture is this great, then why is that not a prerequisite to him? Like, so if you just want to look at his core beliefs, I disagree with them. And if you want to look at those, I would argue they are incredibly failing in that. But again, my general opinion and thoughts probably couldn't be further from Jim Irsay's.
They have rewarded players and a group of players and paid a group of players who have not won. So you wonder why winning may not be the first thing, because a bunch of guys, especially this offseason, they got paid when they didn't win. Last thing I'll say before we take a break. What's also frustrating is while you've done all this, the Colts fan has put up with this, how many other teams have rebuilt their roster? I mean, the Bills have become a superpower, right? The Houston Texans have went from the bottom of the NFL. They've rebuilt. Harbaugh goes to the Chargers. They were a laughingstock. Now they're a playoff team. Denver, whether they get in or not, let's say they do, they have rebuilt. They have a quarterback. The Bengals, if they don't take the first month of the season off, they're a playoff team. They're better than you. So many of these teams have built and rebuilt again while you've been floundering.
All 14 quarterbacks currently in the playoffs were acquired after Chris Ballard was hired. All 14 of them by their respective teams. This is not Brady, Breeze, Roethlisberger, Manning, and Rivers in the playoffs for the 13th straight year.
It's not. No, you're spot on. All right, we'll take your calls on the other side. Plus, Shane Steichen did it again. Just terrible messaging. We'll explain it on the other side. 8 o'clock hour around the corner. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Locke goes out of the gun, throws right side quickly, two neighbors out in space, and he's going to dart inside the 20, slips on the tackle, 10, 5, touchdown. Locke looking to his right, rescanning, throw open in the middle of the field. That's a first down. They're at the 10, they're at the 5, and they're going to score a touchdown with Darius Slayton. Locke looking over this Colts defense, 4 down lineman, takes a snap, looks to his left, dances in the pocket, exits it to the right side, throws wide open, touchdown. New York with the score. That time it's Wan'Dale Robinson, the receiver out of Kentucky. And the Giants have scored 20 points in the first half. They only are averaging 14 on the season. Fresh set of downs now for the Giants. Locke on play action, bootlegs to his right. Quick throw. Neighbors gets out of 2 tackles, 50, 40, down the near sideline, 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown. Locke shuffles up in the pocket, rolling left, looking to run, cuts up, and he dives into the end zone for a touchdown. Drew Locke has accounted for 5 touchdowns today.
5 time, 5 time, 5 time, 5 time, 5 time.
Throw for that many touchdowns and score that many points. I know going into the game they haven't scored 30 points all season. They hadn't won at home all season, and extremely disappointing performance by all of us.
It's a tough situation, obviously, when you're out of the playoff hunt.
Defensively, putrid. I am disappointed as an analyst and as a former Indianapolis coach with the effort that we saw today with so much opportunity on the line, and that's what we go out there, and that's the product that we put on display.
From the sortest defense I've ever seen. Drew Locke scored 5 touchdowns on you. And then you have a coach who's the playoff spot, and guess what? Chris Ballard can throw up his hands and say, oh, you can't blame me. Andrew Luck retired on me 5 years ago. What do you want me to do?
These players should be ashamed of themselves representing the Indianapolis Colts in this city and this organization, because that is not the standard in which we play with at the Indianapolis Colts.
I still have a very strong belief in what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we're going to get there. It's easy to vacillate. Easy to vacillate and go with what the world wants you to do. You either believe in something or you don't. This is what we believe. If it gets me fired, so be it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping.
Probably could just play 3 hours of this jam.
Who doesn't think of old school on Hello, Darkness, My Old Friend? Who doesn't?
Gosh,
that's kind of how I feel, just laying in the bottom of a pool, watching the Colts play.
Don't you?
I need to
KB?
watch that tonight.
Oh yeah, like when Mark played that, I'm like, oh, it makes me think of old school. Even though that obviously that song's been around for decades.
Either that or look up "Vacillate" again, which I had to back when Chris Ballard uttered that phrase back pre-draft press conference or preseason press conference. Good Monday morning to you. Thanks for coping with us, Kevin Bowen, Andy Sweeney, Mark Dykton. Excellent on the rejoinder per usual. 4 years without a playoff appearance. 6 years without a playoff win, 10 years without a division title. However you chalk it up, it is the longest drought in the ownership of Jim Irsay. I think that's probably worth mentioning as well. He's never experienced this type of drought and embarrassment for his franchise, and certainly yesterday's effort was on the Mount Rushmore of it all. 45 points. Did I see this correctly? The ninth, or it had been 9 years since the Giants had gotten to 40 in a game.
Oh, is that right? Well, I mean, I can't remember a time. The Giants hit the over-under by themselves. Remember the over-under? I told you I kind of like the over at 40.5. Of course, I didn't think that, that was going to happen. By the way, Corbin was in for Mark on Friday, and everyone at the Fan picked the Colts to win. I mean, which is understandably why we all did that, okay? Even though now we look silly. Corbin gave the score of 13-10. Is he most right? Because
yes.
because he had it to be a close game, even though he had
right.
it to be comically a low-scoring game when it was not?
He's the most attractive show host or producer here at the Fan.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the degenerates next door need to move aside, and they need to bring Corbin in as the third man on that. Do they not? I don't know. They go 3 wide.
What would qualify? I've said for the last hour or so, watching yesterday had a weird sense of relief. I don't think that's the right word. I've decided to describe it now. I'm changing my tune. I want to describe it more of a bodily action.
What?
Okay, which bodily action?
I think watching that 60-minute performance was like the final few pukes and getting over a sickness. Is that better?
Like when the temperature breaks and you're sweating, you're in bed, but you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit better now that I don't have a temperature.
That's the last time I'll close the door to the bathroom for a while.
That could be it.
But we're talking violent throw-ups here.
We got Mac Jones next week, so what do you
think? I
think?
think that's what that 60-minute was of there's no way, shape, or form Jim Irsay can watch that and think for 1 second, oh boy, I can sell this to my fan base for 2025. I can do, we're going to run it back. Like, this team didn't deserve, hey, 9-8, we were close. Taylor doesn't drop that ball in Denver.
I know.
We were you know what? He also dropped one in MetLife. And it really mattered.
This is my point of there's no pivot. They could have played that card. But all of that has been stripped away.
They didn't earn the right to play that card. Like, again,
but they still would have played it.
Several weeks, it said this 9-8 is not going to be the same as last year's 9-8.
No.
And the fact that now they can't play that card, I think is deserved. I don't think they should have been able to play that card. Again, to me, you didn't earn the right, and obviously you're going to finish the season under 500. But weirdly, I thought yesterday was just the cherry on top. And relief is the word I keep on coming back to of they deserved it. The embarrassment factor is through the roof, and Jim Irsay cannot ignore it.
239-1070. Before we take phone calls, we should hit on this. Anthony Richardson, and listen, I don't know if he plays this week against Jacksonville. That is a conversation Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, KB, we can dive into. But this week, we had messaging that was poor yet again from the head coach, Shane Steichen. Again, Steichen has done some things here, recently, especially that if you were trying to lose your job in 2 years, this is a little bit of what it would look like. So, Mark, let's play all three of these sounds. They're all after the games. Just Shane Steichen, again, going back to, and help me, KB, he said this on Friday. Did he say it on Thursday about the soreness? That is now the hot key word that is out there with the injury to AR, that he was sore.
Just Friday, he said sore. I believe he also used the phrase really sore. I remember the press conference got done. I sat there at my desk and thought, what?
Yeah.
That's it?
That's what I thought. I go, wait a minute. Because I almost tweeted out, wait a minute, he's sore and he's not going to play.
In a do-or-die game?
Well, and I'm seeing Michael Pittman, who's had a back injury, and I'm sure defensive guys. And, Jonathan Taylor got injured during the game on Sunday, and he's still out there playing, even though he's a different story.
And I knew it was Steichen gamesmanship. I mean, that's how I led my story. I go, we're getting gamesmanship from Shane Steichen. Richardson's not going to play.
Right.
I mean, I knew he was going to not play in the game.
He wasn't going to miss an entire week of practice.
But it's Shane Steichen ignoring, it makes your quarterback look soft.
It does. So let's play all three. He was asked about Anthony Richardson's injury.
Yeah, it was back spasm, and it was bad. Like, he wasn't able to go. I mean, otherwise he would have been out there. He just wasn't able to go today and didn't want to put him in harm's way.
All right, so why did he use the verbiage on Friday, soreness? Here's Steichen.
Yeah, I should have said spasms. I mean, yeah, it was bad soreness/spasms back there. Yeah.
All right, and not being transparent, something, KB, you've talked a lot about this season.
Yeah, I mean, I like to keep a lot of things in-house, you know what I mean? And that's part of it.
Listen, I think you can say this is just a guy who hasn't been a head coach, hasn't had to deal with the media, but by this point, you're to the year you're at the end of year 2, and there have been multiple messaging issues this season, and the whole soreness routine really made Anthony Richardson look soft, and that's when you put the tapping of the helmet and bringing himself out of the game, and then you suspend him for a couple weeks and everything else. I know Greg Doyle wrote about this in the Star this morning. I know we've talked about it. Listen, KB, I have serious reservations if Steichen and AR, like, what that's all about. I mean, if you go back to when he was benched, AR was like, yeah, I don't know why I was benched, and we went through that whole thing. Like, the communication between those two, something is amiss. We can talk about the missed tackling and all the Chris Ballard stuff, and all of it's valid, but there is also, I think, some sort of an issue between your franchise quarterback, supposedly, and your head coach.
Yeah, I think Shane Steichen, and again, I know there are some people out there, Andy, let me start here, that really don't care how the head coach sounds. There are people that believe that. Obviously, you could point to plenty of head coaches that were great talkers and really bad coaching football, and bad talkers and really good at coaching football. But I will say this in regards to this specific topic. I think Shane Steichen, easy for me to say, has been rather horrific in his messaging around Anthony Richardson throughout this season. I would argue just the general process of the benching, remember how awkward those 2 weeks were?
Oh, yeah.
And, trying to decipher exactly what it's, and then he finally got to the point where he had the strong opening statement. Like 2 weeks later, remember? I mean, he had the nice 2-minute opening statement that I'm sitting there being like, geez, who has gotten into Shane Steichen? This is not what we're used to at all. And it was like, all right, here's some clarity. Here's some explanation. I don't think you're undressing your football player by sharing a little bit of detail, but I think you're having a little bit of public accountability, which serves him well. I thought the messaging late last week just it
was comical.
It made the people that call Anthony Richardson Tony Glass, it made them have more ammo.
Well, when you
and I'll say this about Richardson. When you watch him play the game of football, do you ever think for one instant he's soft? No.
Yeah, no, I don't.
But when you say he's sore and he can't play the biggest game of the season, people are going to run with that. And that's unfair to him. Look, there are plenty of Anthony Richardson questions that are deserve it and need to be had. Can he throw? So far, 2 years into it, you would say not very accurately. That's a major question. Can you run an effective offense and he stay healthy through 2 years? What would you say?
Right.
No. So,
you can't.
Again, there are major Anthony Richardson questions. Sounds like we had some off-the-field questions earlier this season. But I think it's very unfair for the head coach to have this lack of messaging when he's thinking behind the scenes, oh, this is great gamesmanship, and I'm going to get Brian Dable, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
The worst defense in the NFL. They can't tackle anybody either, can the Giants? Well, here's what it is.
I think it's pretty overblown.
It's either calculated that you're vague and you let it fester like they did around the benching and like they did on Friday, like he did on Friday. It's either calculated or it's ignorance. I don't know if there's a third option there. And
yeah, I'd like, well, it's probably a little bit of both. I would say it is calculated because, again, he believes in gamesmanship as much as I believe in today's Tiger Woods' birthday. How about that? Tiger Woods and LeBron James, same birthday.
Oh, is it really Tiger Woods' birthday?
And Carson Wentz.
Oh, well, when I think of the three greats.
When you think of an I-step test and what doesn't belong, boom. How about those three answers there?
Everyone's doing the thing where they're putting all these old quarterbacks in Giants uniforms, and there's one floating around the internet of Carson Wentz wearing a Giants uniform. Yeah. I saw that last night after I got done running 2 miles on the treadmill.
Sounds like cold sweats at about 3 a.m.
That's about right.
So, again, I think it's a little bit calculated, and then I just think it's general ignorance of Steichen lives in a robotic football bubble and doesn't understand that his words carry weight.
Yeah, he's got to be better. He's got to be better.
You know what? Ballard or whoever, is running to the media on Saturday afternoon trying to clarify, no, he's got spasms. And then you watch all the pregame shows on Saturday. All the national media are clarifying, oh, no, he's got spasms this. And, Richardson's agent has got to run to people and be like, guys, he's really hurt. He's not just really sore. So on the list of Colts problems, Shane Steichen's messaging and poor messaging, I don't put it very high, but it's there.
But it's there, yeah.
Again, some people don't care about it, or some people would say, wait a minute, if that's your messaging, should I be worried about it behind the scenes too? And that's where I come back to Jim Irsay. When Jim Irsay publicly tells us Michael Jordan doesn't miss shots, when he publicly tells us Chris Ballard's a blue-chip GM, and then the actions also back it up, I'm worried.
He told Steichen was what, Don Shula?
Yeah, I forgot about that part.
He forgot about the Don Shula quote. Let's knock out a couple calls. We'll get to a morning check down. We still have our weekend headlines, our GOATs of the weekend as well. 317-239-1070. Matt leads us off on this Monday. Matt, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. And glad I was traveling yesterday. I'm from NYC, but wouldn't have wanted to been around MetLife for even the $3 tickets they were offering there. So just two thoughts today. So first, want to wish you guys both happy Groundhog's Day because here we are again, right? And the season, same results. Second, want to make the case. It might be an overreaction, but for a complete gutting of the team here, or at least coach and GM. And normally, I think it might be a little bit overkill, but anytime you hear an announcer on national TV say it's been a career day for Drew Lock, I think it's a good indication that the whole house is on fire, right? So, GM, right? Instead of focusing on yesterday, since 2018 on defense, Chris Ballard's rosters have averaged 18th in opponents' points per game, 17th opponents' yards per game, and 18th opponents' third down conversions percentage. On offense, 15th points per game, so that's Colts offense, 17th in red zone scoring percentage, and 16th in third down conversion percentage, excuse me. And I just want to be clear on that. So 65 players have been selected by Chris Ballard, 34 on defense, 31 on offense. So it's not for a lack of having, addressing or failing to address both sides of the ball. It's just the fact that Chris Ballard is mediocre at evaluating talent, and 8 years of this is enough. I mean, it's Groundhog's Day, like I mentioned. It's outrageous. For coaches, I know we talk a lot about Gus, but I don't know what Shane Steichen has done to show that he has the ability to be an NFL coach, other than not being named Frank Reich or Jeff Saturday. I don't think that beating the Ravens once with Gardner Minshew is enough to say that he's the guy. And I think that there needs to be some soul searching there.
Agreed.
Matt, thank you for the call.
Appreciate it, Matt. We're going to be quick.
Yeah,
trying to knock out as many as we can.
I would say just one thing to kind of add to that. This Colts defensive approach, it's largely Ballard. If you go back, Matt Eberflus was hired by Ballard for Josh McDaniels. Who was retained, here, it was Gus Bradley, retained from Frank Reich, to Shane Steichen after Matt Eberflus, took the Bears job. So this, generally the 4-man front, content with a simpler scheme, content with giving up gobs and gobs of completions, saying we'll be bend but don't break. That is largely the Ballard philosophical belief defensively. And so I think that would be another mark on the resume.
It's
negatively.
maddening.
And again,
it's just maddening.
I don't think that's me, whatever, just trying to pluck out random things.
Their defense is maddening.
So, we'll probably get to Matt's other points a little bit later. Again, to me, I said it last segment, Chris Ballard needs to be fired. It needs to happen a week from today. I'd probably put Gus Bradley on that list. I can expand on that a little bit later. I will say I'm a little bit more torn on Shane Steichen than Matt is.
No,
and again,
that'll be the one we talk about.
There is a side
forward.
of me, Andy, that certainly thinks, hey, GM head coach need to be tied at the hip. But I'm going to try to I think we should individually evaluate all of these parties, make decisions off of that, and then kind of go from there.
Their defense is maddening. While it lacks some talent, I want to be clear. They don't have gobs of talent. This is not the 2000 Ravens, the 85 Bears, some of the great teams you see this year. But I believe a different scheme and a more aggressive defensive coordinator, this defense would not be as bad as it is. But they need more talent. But with what they have, they could be much better.
But don't misconstrue lack of talent for lack of investment. They have invested richly with draft capital and money into this defense.
I know.
So don't misconstrue those two things. I know you're not, but I just want to clarify that.
Well, and then when Kwity Paye gets dominated by Evan Neal yesterday, you're like, yeah.
Do you remember one play Kwity Paye has made in his 4 years as a coach?
No.
Not a one.
No.
And I get,
not to pick on him, but no.
No, but you want more out of Latu, certainly. Latu's a rookie rusher.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue Latu's play on Caleb Williams is more than anything Kwity Paye's done.
You're probably right. Let's get a couple more here before it checked out. 239-1070. Paul up next on The Fan on a Monday. Paul, fire away, buddy.
Good morning, fellas.
Paul, good morning. We know you're going to bring it, so you're wound up. Go ahead, brother.
Well, before I bring it, I want to say Happy New Year's to you, Andy, and Mark. Now, Ballard needs to go. I'm so sick and tired of him drafting defensive linemen in the first couple of rounds and these defensive linemen not panning out. I mean, you can go through a list of defensive linemen, and he misses on the quarterbacks that he should have taken, or he could have got the star receiver in Jacksonville, Brian Thomas Jr., and he passed on him. I am so sick and tired of Ballard sitting up there thinking he's right all the freaking time, and us fans don't know what we're talking about with what we're seeing. Because we all said before the season even started after last year that Gus Bradley needed to go. And what did he convince? I'm more than certain that he's the one who told Shane, we're keeping Gus Bradley. You're not going to let him go. So Shane Steichen had to say, hey, I like the continuity. I like familiarity, and we have to keep Gus Bradley. This is the most ridiculous thing that I've seen. And then if Shane Steichen, as the head coach, can't see that his defense is getting torched by a journeyman quarterback and not say, hey, let's be more aggressive and change this up. You stick to a vanilla defense against these no-name quarterbacks. And, if you can go down the list since Gus Bradley has been our defensive coordinator. These no-name, not good quarterbacks are killing the Colts. And then one last thing. Colts went against the worst team in the NFL yesterday. You know what this makes the Colts the worst team in the NFL, because not only did they lose to the Giants, but they also lost to Jacksonville. You take those two wins and you take those two losses and you flip those, and you're in first place in the division.
Yeah.
This whole organization needs to be changed around. And if Chris Ballard can say, I'm fine if I get fired, then you fire his ass and you don't look back, because he is the reason why this team is in the position that they're in.
Good job, Paul.
Paul, Happy New Year.
God bless you, Paul. You're right. He's right.
The Paul going with like the genuine Happy New Year to each of us. I believe he mentioned each of us by name, and then immediately going into the rant. It's like one of those NHRA cars. You know how they're like, they're just sitting there, and you think, oh wow, they're not even moving,
Right.
and the next thing you know,
they're going 100 miles per hour.
bam, they're going 300 miles per hour.
Yeah, whatever it is.
That's Paul on a weekly basis.
Hey, listen,
with us.
he's spot on with Ballard and Gus Bradley. He's spot on. He couldn't be more right.
Does Paul want the list? Because I tweeted out yesterday at 3:56 p.m., and I'm afraid I missed a few. Colts defense in 2024, Andy Sweeney.
Yeah, go ahead.
Joe Mixon, the most rushing yards in 3 years.
Yep.
Josh Jacobs, the most rushing yards in 2 years. Trevor Lawrence, career high. And like the names I'm about to mention, Drake May, career day.
Man.
The Jets scored their most points of the season. That would be the New York Jets.
They're down 40-0 yesterday, by the way.
The Patriots missed their season high against the Colts by 1 point.
By one.
So I don't know.
Drake May was really good in that
you
game.
could maybe put that banner next to the 2014 division title. Patriots second most points scored all season long. Drew Lock, a career day. Again, that is Drew Lock. The Giants, Andy's Giants, score their most points in 9 years.
And also, they had 3 interceptions going into the game, and they had a couple yesterday. I mean, they basically matched their interception total from the entire season yesterday.
I tweeted out, missing anything, ? And again, there might be a character limit, but I did miss a few. I believe a career high passer rating for one Malik Willis. Mark can maybe confirm this, but I think Caleb Williams' most passing yards of his rookie season have been against the Colts.
I would need to go back, but that might be true.
And Justin Fields got, I think, either first or second, his most yards ever in the NFL, and Justin Fields has played quite a bit of football. That's just in 2024.
Yeah.
And if you just want to boil it down to one stat, let's just go to points allowed. 29th in year 1, 29th in year 2, and as we wake up here with one game to go this season, 27th allowed. It's pretty simple. A week from today, Andy, Chris Ballard needs to be fired, and so does Gus Bradley.
By the way, quarterbacks the Colts have beat this season: Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, Will Levis, Tyler Huntley, and Tim Boyle, Aaron Rodgers, Drake May, and Mason Rudolph. That's who they've beat.
And look,
it's unbelievable.
If you go back to last year, it ain't much better than that.
It's the same.
I mean, if you go back to the last really 14 months, this team has beat Baker Mayfield.
Yes.
That's probably where I go. Because think back.
And TJ Watt, who's a defensive lineman.
No. Yeah, I've been talking quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Go back to last year. I mean, you beat Mac Jones. You beat Bryce Young. You beat Aiden O'Connell. I'm trying to think who else you beat. Was it Trubisky? Was he starting for the Steelers last year when you beat him?
Yeah, he was. And who was the Patriots guy last year?
It was Mac Jones.
It was Mac Jones, yeah.
It was Bailey Zappi, was it?
Well, you'll see on Sunday. No, I think they brought in Zappi late. Is that what it was in Germany?
I think they did, yeah. Oh, you want to get to a morning check down?
Oh, sure.
All right, let's do it.
The Dogs continue Big East play with a 6:30 p.m. tip-off against Villanova at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
All right, we'll skip Colts sound. We'll get to that next hour. 45-33, that's your final. Colts and Jags final week of the season coming up on Sunday. Let's go to Boston. I mean, the Pacers. How about this? Beating the Celtics 2 out of 3. Bad game on Friday. They come back with a 123-114 win yesterday. Tyrese Halliburton was great. 31 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds in the win. All 5 starters scoring in double figures. Nembhard, another good game. 17, 8, and 8 for him. Pacers now 16-17 on the season. They'll wrap up the year of 2024 hosting Milwaukee. That's coming up tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Right here on The Fan.
Rick Carlisle will join us tomorrow at 8. Speaking of the hardwood, let's go up to West Lafayette yesterday. 83-64. Purdue back in action over Toledo. Braden Smith looked like Sectional 8 Braden Smith. Career high, 34 points, 12 assists. First player in Purdue history to have a 30-point 10-assist game. Down in Bloomington, it was 77-68. IU was actually only up 1 on Winthrop with 3 minutes to go. They outscored Winthrop 8-0 in the final 3 minutes. I would say the non-conference schedule has been pretty meh, and that might be a compliment, frankly, for Indiana. One quad one win, net ranking in the 60s. I don't think anything on the resume that makes you feel very good. Quality of play, I would argue, doesn't make you feel any good. Anu Barbala was looking for Strange at the Bloomington bars, and that's why he didn't play last night.
Hopefully he found some.
I mean, again, winter break, you're going to find some desperateness.
Yeah, the campus is usually pretty empty.
Did they have the alumni that were playing the clarinet and the trombone and the trumpet?
It actually looked like a decent crowd down there.
Of course, Indiana fans bring it to Assembly Hall. That's not the problem with IU basketball.
Mike Woodson,
else.
No comment on Umar Ballo not playing yesterday. Some pictures floating around on the webs of Senor Ballo at a Bloomington establishment the night before the game.
All right, we'll keep taking your phone calls. People keep calling. 239-1070. We'll get to that after the break. Goats of the weekend, the good and bad that was. We'll talk about it next. Appreciate you hanging out with us. It's a Monday right here on The Fan.
A lot of big picture reaction to the embarrassment yesterday in MetLife. I know we probably don't focus too much on the game, and a bit understandably, Andy, but I must say the Jonathan Taylor effort on the 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 near the sideline, the dropping of the 2-point conversion. Boy, Jonathan Taylor is a hell of a first and second down running back, and there are some plays outside of that where I just think, what in the world? And those were 2 instances yesterday. I mean, if he simply just dives near the sideline, just a dive, you get the first down there at a critical juncture. 4th and inches, you could maybe even question kind of stretching the ball out.
Well, see, I did, yeah.
On that.
But even so, the 3rd down's the egregious one, not the 4th down.
And then the 2-point conversion play. I mean, as weird as it sounds, like that is a risky play with Taylor. And I know that might sound ludicrous to people, but like, do you remember him with the flea flicker about a month or two ago?
Yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah, I forgot all about that. You're spot on.
Looked like Little Gas trying to throw a watermelon. And just in general, he doesn't catch the football.
He just listen. He can't do it. It's like knowing your strengths and weaknesses. This goes back to Chris Ballard. How do they not? How many times? And I don't even know what he even had for the game. And obviously they went to Malik Neighbors so much, but. Tyrone Tracy, who has played, he only had 2 catches yesterday, but this is a guy who's played just very little. He's played in 16 games, but he's really only played in like 10 to 12 games. He's going to end up with more than 40 catches this season. And he's a rookie, a fifth rounder who's going to end up playing just part of the season, who shares time at running back. I'm just bringing him up that he's a guy that has 40 catches this season. And to me, this goes back to building a team, how they have missed to where they can't throw a little dump-off pass or a screen pass, or even when they have Jonathan Taylor in and they put him out wide or they fake him out wide. What defense is going to be worried about Jonathan Taylor split out wide? Listen, he is a good player. At times, he is a great player. You have paid him handsomely. He's a very good 1st and 2nd down, maybe even short yardage. He can get into the end zone. He is having a nice season, but there are things that he just cannot do. He is not good at, and when you put him in those positions, bad things have happened with your team. And I thought if he caught the flea flicker, I thought he had a good shot at getting in. I don't know if he would have, but I thought he had a better than 50% chance of getting in the end zone.
I think from a momentum standpoint, he would have got in. There was a DB kind of, in an angle in that area, but granted, I would have thought he would have got the first down near the sideline as well. I do want to add one more thing before we get to our goats on the Gus Bradley front. Again, I said about an hour ago, a week ago Monday, or a week from today, Chris Ballard should be fired, Gus Bradley should be fired. I would say one thing to add on the Gus Bradley front is just an overall thought on the defense. It is just too damn simple for modern-day NFL. The preparation it takes to get ready for the Colts defense is such a far cry from preparing for other defenses. And Shane Steichen, whether he will never admit this publicly, he would agree with you. And so that is what is so confusing to me on why he is accepting of that defensive philosophy underneath him. Like, it almost feels like you play the Colts defense and you're spending a weekend at a retreat house. It's like, hey, your life's in shambles. You know what? Trevor Lawrence.
Like Aaron Rodgers did.
Come on down. Get your life back in order. Hey, Jets, you want to have your season high in points? Welcome here. Giants, you want to have your one shot at glory all year long? Come play the Colts. Joe Mixon, you haven't done anything in a couple of years. Here you go. Josh Jacobs, you haven't done anything in a couple of years. Here you go. Play the Colts. Like, that's what it's like. And it happens way too often with the Colts under Gus Bradley.
They have these, and they're not even full games because Steichen's been able to say, well, the second half, like the Green Bay game, week 2, wow, the second half, and they could even point to parts of the second half before the Neighbors and the Drew Lock drive where they said, well, the second half we fixed things. It's like, yeah, but you guys allowed 30 points in the first half. Like, you understand this is not complimentary football at all when the defense is being gashed in the first half and the time of possession is crooked and you're behind in the game and now you're having to change your offensive scheme. I mean, and again, they beat the Titans, so some of it gets pushed aside. I mean, they were terrible in that second half against the Titans.
Well, and
they were terrible.
I think bend but don't break is just an extremely soft way to play. And I think there are ramifications that aren't maybe crystal clear in a box score from it, Andy, of when you are bend but don't break, you're willing to have your defense out there for longer stretches. that defense of personnel is then going to get a bit more tired.
Yep.
You are allowing the opponent to kind of flip the field. So what does that do? Let's say you eventually get a stop. Hey, we gave up 42 yards in this drive.
Right.
But we got a stop. Well, now all of a sudden your offense has got to drive. 42 more yards, or you know what I'm getting at. It changes field position significantly. It puts other stress on different units of your football team, and I just don't think you dictate enough to your opponent.
No, I would agree. Who was on the call yesterday? Oh, Jonathan Vilma.
Yeah,
he
Vilma
just
and Kenny
kept
Albert.
mentioning complimentary football, and he's spot on with that. All right, the good and bad of the weekend, goats of the weekend. Go ahead, Mark. Take the open.
Who is the GOAT?
I told you all that I was the greatest of all time.
Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. A shot on Elo. Good!
That's what I'm talking about. That's why he's MVP. That's why he's the GOAT. The GOAT.
Or GOAT?
This guy sucks.
Of the week.
Mark Dyson, why don't you lead us off? We will start with the lowercase GOAT after a Colts loss. Why don't you go ahead and...
Sure. My lowercase GOAT was actually the NFL stretching itself thin this past week because we had
Amen.
games on Christmas Day, Thursday night, a triple header on Saturday, and on Sunday, that meant the late window gave us just 2 measly games. Obviously, Packers-Vikings was a shiny object in the window, but then you got the turd game of the Browns and the Dolphins on national TV with Tyler Huntley against Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I'm just like, this is the other game that's on. This is the CBS broadcast. It just made the 4 o'clock window a rare swing and a miss for the NFL. There's only 2 games. They tried to get away from it, but it's because they had so many games on so many different days this week. We got stuck with a really crap Sunday slate.
Mark is spot on. It's why I got on the treadmill, among other reasons, that 4:30 slate. Plus, I mean...
So you got on the treadmill post-Busch Lights?
Yeah. Oh,
That's a bold decision.
That doesn't happen
what a
too
Sunday
much.
effort out of
Dude,
you.
my wife's like, she came in the room like an hour later. She's like, are you still... She's like, I'm still mad. She's like, why are you mad? I'm like, you know why I'm mad.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't had to do this in many years, but you know why I'm mad. But Mark's spot on with that. So much so that the Red Zone had to go to interviews from.
Oh, they were doing like montages from earlier. Yeah, because we
montages.
can't keep showing just one game at a time here.
I'll be serious on mine, and you mentioned it earlier. We all lost something with Greg Gumbel passing away, the voice of so many things, but especially Selection Sunday, NCAA tournament. Boy, when it comes March Madness, we're going to miss that. So rest in peace. That from the weekend, Greg Gumbel passing away. I knew he was sick. I didn't know he was that sick. It's too bad, man.
Well, mine certainly
seemed
pales
like a
in
good guy.
comparison to that. And I don't necessarily want to take like a direct shot at the kid himself and the total undressing of it. But I just hate that we get continued opt-outs in these bowl games and like Cam Ward plays a half over the weekend.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
What are we doing? Either play or don't. And he had some whatever measly record that, whatever, the COVID year probably impacted why he even broke the record in the first place. I could be totally wrong on that. I'm just speaking out of my ass to be honest with you. But that just rubs me the wrong way. And I want these bowl games to matter for some of these programs. And I get it. Miami's got rich history. It's not, whatever. Other programs that might care a little bit, Navy beating Oklahoma, for example, something like that. But I would just like to see, and the future of NIL to dictate this, you sign on the dotted line, you're playing in the bowl game, period. And you're playing 60 minutes. Like, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, what's funny is if he just would have opted out completely, it's a non-story. But him opting out at halftime actually made it much more of a story.
Should I respect him or should I not?
I know. If he just would have opted out, no one would have cared. Good goat of the week, uppercase goat. Mark, you want to go first?
My good goat has been, I've had very little to be excited about in this NFL season. Just very little. Between the Colts and the Bears, not much. But the one thing I will hang my hat on, the one thing that has brought me great joy has been Aaron Rodgers and the Jets just getting absolutely demolished on a week-in and week-out basis. Aaron Rodgers became the most sacked quarterback of all time. Yesterday, he gave up a safety. He got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty.
He took himself out of the game as well.
He looked terrible.
Yeah.
And I hope the Jets and the Rodgers run it back in 2025. With that said, I'm fully expecting the Colts to sign Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, and they'll do their veteran quarterback roulette again.
Maybe some earmuffs for some children in the car, but I did have to laugh at this tweet in regards to Aaron Rodgers from over the weekend. The Jets getting Aaron Rodgers is like finally, and I'll just use the word intercourse, Finally having intercourse with your high school crush when she's 40 and has 4 kids. It's a late entry, but that's gotta be up there for tweet of the year, right?
Oh, man.
I mean, Mark Dykton
It's
had to
spot
have thrown a like and maybe even a retweet on it.
Oh, yeah.
That is tremendous.
Right, DM that person was like, good job, I knew.
That's
Andy,
so
my
true.
all caps goat of the weekend. First off, I think this dude is really good at basketball, and I enjoy the sense of humor. How about Victor Wembanyama heading to Central Park to play chess?
Yeah, and he had like 40 points the night before. He's great, isn't he?
I mean, like,
they stink,
again,
but he's good.
Like, off the floor, I think there's a lot there.
I agree.
With Wembanyama. Now, it's unfortunate we won't get to see him in our backyard this year. Those games will be in Paris coming up here in less than a month. But, like, how about him tweeting out, hey, who wants to meet me at the southwest corner of Washington Square to play chess? And the pictures are awesome. Just like rainy chess, you know, every person in America, like you would, it's a melting pot inside of Central Park. And there's Wemby, just sitting down and
7-7 or whatever he is.
Yeah, having a beautiful chess game or two on a Saturday morning.
Great.
So I love what Wemby has shown here in his NBA career.
Quickly, mine and Colts fans won't like this. My good of the weekend, my go to the weekend. You know what? The New England Patriots. We talked about this during the break.
Oh, you going there?
Hang on. They've lost 6 straight games. They know how to lose. What did they do on Saturday, Giants? They lost 40-7 to Jim Harbaugh. That's how you do it. They got Drake May last year, who's going to be pretty good, and they're going to get the number 1 pick this year, which means they can get Travis Hunter, or they can move back 2, 3, 4 spots and get an absolute haul. So the evil empire has been a little bit less evil the last couple years, but they got the quarterback. They knew how to tank this year. Good for them. They won the weekend. The Patriots won the weekend, and they lost 40-7.
So they have the number 1 pick right now.
Right
Giants fall to 4 with yesterday's result.
And the Patriots had the Bills. They'll sit everybody, but we'll see what happens there. Your phone calls, what needs to happen with the Colts? Plus at 9 o'clock, what did Pat McAfee say on Twitter about the debacle yesterday? We'll talk about it. We'll do it next. 239-1070. Appreciate you waking up with us here on The Fan.
Some extremely strong comments from Pat McAfee. We'll get to that here in a bit. Did want to mention a couple individuals from yesterday, and I know it might even sound ludicrous to single them out positively, but I did think yesterday was the best combined day from Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr. all season long. And Flacco wasn't perfect, Andy, but I did think it was a reminder of, man, he's given these guys a lot of opportunities to make plays. Now, it's up to them to make them, and 180 Mitchell certainly had an opportunity and showed us why he has been 80 Mitchell throughout this rookie season. But, boy, I thought Pierce and Pitt were so good. I mean, just moments of truth catches, catch out of the radius, big plays down the field, really kept the Colts in it.
It's difficult to kind of bang on what the wide receivers did this year. Like, I have trouble. Like, you look at their stats, the stats stink. But Anthony Richardson cannot throw the football, right? And, Joe Flacco can. Now, can he win many games? Is he going to throw a couple interceptions, take a sack or two? He is. And we understand the limitations with Joe Flacco. But, I know Pittman's been injured, or, when the season's over, KB, you're going to look at some of these stats, and you're going to say, what the hell's going on with this group? They need to get more help for Anthony Richardson. And while I think they do at times need to get more help to Anthony Richardson, the quarterback does make a difference. And when Joe Flacco's in the game, some of those passing numbers look much better. And that is probably the only thing I feel like that they rightfully exploited from this game. The Giants' secondary is terrible. The defense is terrible, but the secondary is terrible. Jonathan Taylor had 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. Pierce and Pittman. Hell, Granson had a couple catches that went, the one down the left sideline. I'm thinking
that was a big 4th and 5 he had in the first half.
It was. 80 Mitchell's going to be probably after the season, but with the other wide receivers that were taken around him in the draft, I'm scared to death about 80 Mitchell. He dropped another pass. Now, he was open for a touchdown, and Flacco missed him, and that would have been – I called that on Friday. So I think 80 might get to the end zone. He didn't, but he has had a bad first season. There's no other way around it. It doesn't mean he's a bust. It doesn't mean I'm ready to pull the plug, but part of picking up him up in the second round was he was going to bring something else to your team, and that flat-out KB – has not happened.
I would add one more individual from yesterday. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times in his, 8-9-year career that I have mentioned him in a negative light, I think, on a Monday morning after a game. But I thought it was one of the poor performances from Kenny Moore that we've seen. I thought he had some moments to either make plays as a playmaker, batting balls down,
or surprised.
As a tackler. I think he's an extremely, pound for pound, I guess it's not saying much. He's best tackler that the Colts have. I thought he had a really poor day, especially for his standard yesterday.
The only other thing I would say, and we'll take a phone call or two here, 239-1070, is when the game was basically done, that last touchdown, they go to the bench, and there's DeForest Buckner sitting there, head down, shoulders slumped, shaking his head. And I felt bad for DeForest Buckner. I did. At that moment, he talked about it going into this game on coming from San Francisco and the Super Bowl and what that franchise has been, and then coming to the Colts. I feel bad for him. I'm not saying he's the greatest player in the NFL. He seems to be, he's a hell of a player, seems like a good guy, seems like a guy that's bringing it, not a guy half-assing it or loafing it or not being professional. There are those guys on this team. That AD Buck. And just seeing him sitting there knowing, right, he went through a pretty big injury beginning of the season to fight back from, just seeing him sit there, shoulder slumped, it's like, yeah, it's that bad, big guy. And he understood it.
Drew Lock dropped back 25, I'm seeing this right, 25 times yesterday. No sacks, 1 quarterback hit.
I know. I just don't know how that happens.
There's no more position group in the Chris Ballard era that is more disappointing than the defensive line. The amount of investment into that. Again, he's ignored, I would argue, a lot of other positions that would fall premium. He hasn't ignored D-line at all. He's invested quite a bit, and they are swings and misses galore.
239-1070. Will up next on the Fan on a Monday. Will, good morning. Fire away, buddy.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. Long-time listener, it's really my first time calling. And Kevin, just want to give a thank you for your pressers with questions you ask. I think you do a great job of towing the line of maintaining relationships, but also trying to just peek underneath the covers of be it cultural issues, not benching JT after the fumble, or just trying to peek behind the curtain and seeing what they answer with. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah, you're welcome. Was mentioning, hey, this question of blackmail for Irsay and keeping Ballard. I would be curious just to see kind of like following the money, Ballard's handling of cap space. It seems like we always have this, cushion of $8 to $10 million every year, especially when we're doing the whole all chips in. Just curious why we're not getting kind of those single-year contracts, try to push over the edge. And then kind of an anecdote for the culture. I once had an employee I hired, great employee, showed up early, worked hard, high energy, but always just made small mistakes in a field that's not acceptable. And he had such high energy, you want to keep him. And one weird thing about him, odd fact, was that he had kind of just a little bit of a lazy eye that he had to live his entire life with. He gave 100%, but living that entire life, it's kind of, you just had to accept him for him. And he actually had the surgery, and it was odd how his behavior, once he had that small fix, those small mistakes were improved, not because of a vision thing, but just how he saw himself. I think Irsay, with his history, lives a life of, constantly worrying or hoping people will accept him for who he is. If there are mistakes, apologizing for it and hoping to move on. He has a work partner through Ballard who's had to accept him for who he is. And I think that trickles down to these players when they make small mistakes, or you just kind of having to live with what it is. So thanks for taking my call.
But that's a deep call from Will. I don't know if we're qualified.
Yeah. Will, thank you for the anecdote. Thank you for the nice words. Yeah, that was deep.
I don't think any of us know the why behind some of the Irsay stuff. If you did, you'd be the smartest man in Indianapolis. You'd be the smartest man in the NFL if you knew some of the why behind the decisions that have been made or not made.
Andy, I'm shaking my head. People ask me Jim Irsay questions all the time. People ask me Jim Irsay related, is he in the, state to make a decision that would have the gravitas that potentially is deserved a week from today? And I think it's a fair question.
I think we need to know who's in charge. Yeah, that's a fair question.
We've seen him once in the public light since that preseason game. One time. Golf cart for Dallas Clark's Ring of Honor. By all accounts, don't believe he's been at a road game this year. So I just don't know. And when do you fully pass that torch on to Carly and the rest of the daughters? I mean, it just that is the biggest unknown in all of this. And I've said all throughout the show today, I think Chris Ballard and Gus Bradley should both lose their jobs a week from today. But who and how that decision is made,
who knows?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
Well, then who's going through the hiring process?
Well,
of that?
Who's it? Were they relying on?
Right.
Yeah.
Who's conducting interviews?
What's the brain trust? Let's get Joe. Joe, can you do this in 30 seconds, my man, before the top of the hour? Fire away, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Yeah, based off what you just said, don't they have consulting companies that, like, if we don't trust Irsay or his daughters to make the next decision on the GM, there's a lot more I want to talk about. I have 30 seconds, but don't they have consulting companies to do that?
Sure. I mean, I think that's a lot of background work, but I think the ultimate decision certainly would have to come from the family.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say basically the effort wasn't there. We need a guy like a Vrabel. Steichen's like a modern day North Turner. He's a great offensive mind, but he's not a leader. But yeah, that's about all that I have time for, I guess.
I'm sorry, Joe. Appreciate it.
Joe, I think that general thought, albeit short, is a really fair statement to bring up about Shane Steichen. That is probably a topic to expand on for another day. Of offensive mind-wise, I do think there's something there with Shane Steichen. I do. I know it hasn't been perfect, but I do. But the overall leadership head coach hat, oh boy. I think it's fair to have some questions here 2 years in. Now, is it enough to all of a sudden say you're done?
Right, that's the question. Yeah, I think we agree with that.
That again, I want to evaluate everybody individually with this, and clearly I'm not torn on Ballard. I'm not torn on Bradley. I'm torn on Steichen.
I'm torn on Steichen. Yeah, we'll have more time to do that next hour. Also, obviously coming up this week. What did Pat McAfee say yesterday? Quite the strong language on one of his tweets. We'll talk about that. Plus your phone calls 239-1070, 9 o'clock hour around the corner. It's a Monday on the Fan.
It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Locke goes out of the gun, throws right side quickly, two neighbors out in space, and he's going to dart inside the 20, slips on the tackle, 10, 5, touchdown. Locke looking to his right, rescanning, throw open in the middle of the field. That's a first down. They're at the 10, they're at the 5, and they're going to score a touchdown with Darius Slayton. Locke looking over this Colts defense, 4 down lineman, takes the snap, looks to his left, dances in the pocket, exits it to the right side, throws wide open, touchdown. New York with the score. That time it's Wan'Dale Robinson, the receiver out of Kentucky. And the Giants have scored 20 points in the first half. They only are averaging 14 on the season. Fresh set of downs now for the Giants. Locke on play action, bootlegs to his right. Quick throw. Neighbors gets out of 2 tackles, 50, 40, down the near sideline, 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown. Locke shuffles up in the pocket, rolling left, looking to run, cuts up, and he dives into the end zone for a touchdown. Drew Locke has accounted for 5 touchdowns today.
5 time, 5 time, 5 time, 5 time, 5 time.
Throw for that many touchdowns and score that many points. I know going into the game they haven't scored 30 points all season. They hadn't won at home all season, and extremely disappointed performance by all of us.
It's a tough situation, obviously, when you're out of the playoff hunt.
Defensively, putrid. I am disappointed as an analyst and as a former Indianapolis coach with the effort that we saw today with so much opportunity on the line, and that's what we go out there, and that's the product that we put on display.
From the sortest defense I've ever seen. Drew Lock scored 5 touchdowns on you. And then you have a Colts lose the playoff spot. And guess what? Chris Ballard can throw up his hands and say, oh, you can't blame me. Andrew Luck retired on me 5 years ago. What do you want me to do?
These players should be ashamed of themselves representing the Indianapolis Colts in this city and this organization, because that is not the standard in which we play with at the Indianapolis Colts.
I still have a very strong belief in what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we're going to get there. It's easy to vacillate. Easy to vacillate and go with what the world wants you to do. You either believe in something or you don't. This is what we believe. If it gets me fired, so be it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you.
On the Colts Mount Rushmore of embarrassment, you had to do some readjusting after yesterday. Totally, utterly pathetic, and I thought, frankly, deserved. I thought the Colts deserved to pull their own plug on the season. There was part of me that watched it, as weird and as sick as it might sound, Andy. I thought, you know what? It's probably good that the Bengals beat the Broncos yesterday. Like, the Colts this season deserve to have the Colts doing it to themselves, and they did that yesterday in utterly historic fashion to your New York Giants, 45-33.
Now, one thing we haven't talked about, do you consider this worse than the 2011 game? Because I don't. I still think 2011 was when you get in. The Colts still needed things to happen in Week 18. It was still going to be, this season they needed things to happen in Week 18. I know that's kind of been the bullet point, has it not been? Like, the lead to a lot of stories has been the worst loss the Colts have had since. And then you go back to that game the last week of the year, Jacksonville.
I think Jacksonville was worse.
Yeah, to me that's worse because it was win and you get in.
Well, that, and I actually thought like that Colts team was good. I never really thought this Colts team. I mean, if you want to break down every win from this season, Andy.
Oh, we did it last hour, yeah.
5-point win over the Bears early in the season. 3-point win over Justin Fields and the Steelers. 3-point win over the Titans. 6-point win over the Dolphins with Tyler Huntley and Tad. Is it Tad or Tim? Sorry, Uncle Tad. Tim Boyle.
It's Tim Boyle. We did this last week. Tad Boyle was the coach at Colorado.
Right. 1-point win over the Jets. 1-point win over the Patriots. 8-point win over the Titans. Mark can probably double-check this, but I believe – so the Colts have 7 wins, is that right? Are they 7-9? Is that the record?
Correct, yes.
Is 6 of the 7 wins against teams drafted in the top 10?
That's a great question. By the way, you mentioned,
are the Jets drafting in the top 10? They have to be, right?
Yeah, they're drafting. They have what, five wins, I think. You asked the question.
So your only non-top 10 drafting win is over the Steelers with a backup quarterback.
Yeah, with Justin Fields, who got benched
and
they
no
moved on.
2-score wins.
No, I mean, listen, we talked about who they have beat, who they've lost to. Now, you asked the question. When they faced Caleb Williams had 363 yards in that game. You ask, is that the best game that he hit, the most yards that he's had in his rookie season? And the answer to that is yes, it is. Now, he had 340 about a month ago against Minnesota in a loss there. Mark, you may remember that game. That was a close game. That was an overtime game against the Vikings. But if you go by just pure yards, he dropped back. He threw the ball 52 times in that game. He had 363 yards and a couple touchdowns, couple tutties.
You're in a midlife crisis. Go play the Colts. That's where you're at. Man. You want to have a career day? It's a slump buster. It's what Umar Bala was looking for at the bars.
Is that why I missed?
If you want it.
Mike Woodson doesn't want to talk about
play
that.
the Colts.
The Dolphins currently have the 15th overall pick.
Okay, so the Dolphins are one with, again, I would think you'd need to throw in the asterisks of a Tyler Huntley, Tim Boyle, right?
Oh, yeah. If Tua plays in that game, they lose to that game was what, 16-10? What was it? It was something like that. Oh, yeah. If Tua plays, they probably win that one. Do you want me just to – it's hard to do this. I don't want to read too much, but just a couple excerpts from Pat McAfee yesterday
Yeah.
on
I think
Twitter.
A lot of our listeners probably have already consumed it. I tweeted out yesterday I would pay a good chunk of change to watch Jim Irsay's reaction to reading that for the first time. I know we heard Marlon Jackson clips, courtesy of Wish TV and Anthony Calhoun there. Mark put those in the re-entry for those curious who that voice was. That was indeed Marlon Jackson on that. But Pat McAfee, I would say, did not hold back. So, yeah, I would say throw out an excerpt or two and we can react to it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's still mad over, I think, some of the Zaire Franklin stuff. He said current players who have won nothing during their entire tenures have started using me and my face to try and paint me as the enemy in the city I've committed my life to. Again, go to his Twitter. This is a very long statement. This probably took him a while to put together, but I think it was calculated and pointed. He said, I'm going down a little bit ways. He says, a blind person could see the red flags on this team. Work ethic questions never happens on good teams. Preparation, commitment questions never happens on good teams. Late to meetings never happens on good teams. Late to and skipping treatment never happens on good teams. The franchise quarterback tapped out of a game on third down in the red zone because he was tired. Never happened in the history of the NFL. He talks a little bit about Anthony Richardson. Let me see here. Another one. As a multiple-year season ticket holder, I'm not renewing, and someone who has actively daily attempted to be an additive to this beautiful city, I hope they become a good franchise again. The city deserves it. The OGs in the Colts building deserve it. And on the flip side, the coaches, players in that building deserve whatever happens to them. Your unwarranted arrogance, laziness, and lack of professionalism has led you to another early vacation, which is probably what most of you entitled bums have been hoping for. How about that? He's harsh on Anthony Richardson, talks about how much he loves the city. And when he mentioned OGs, he's talking about people, which I agree, by the way, the PR people, the ticketing people, the sales people. I feel bad for those people. We went out, KB, I know you've done this many years, to training camp, and the Colts are great to us. I mean, absolutely. The people behind the scenes there are 1,000% fantastic, and they have to watch this mess around them. What do you make? I mean, it sounds like McAfee knows there's some guys that have missed some meetings and missed quite a few meetings, have missed treatment, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, that would not surprise me given on how this team plays on a week-in, week-out basis. That wouldn't be surprising, but it's still illuminating nonetheless.
Are they scrambling to edit McAfee out of the pregame video coming up on Sunday or no?
Yeah.
I wanted to know who gets the honor of hitting the anvil. Who's going to get that honor?
Well, we still have yet to have Caitlin Clark.
Well, you better not bust her out for Week 18 with the Jaguars.
Yeah, brother.
Tickets are going for $10.
That ain't the week. This isn't the week. The Colts have had complicated relationships.
It's a game that screams of, how about Thomas Bryant?
My God.
Curtis Painter, what's he doing?
They should have us. How about us three go up there? How about that?
Yeah, this game probably deserves something, as I said. On the McAfee front, I nodded my head throughout. Unwarranted arrogance.
Laziness.
Their actions indicate a lot of that. And again, I would argue at the top of it. I think largely McAfee is talking about, certainly the Zaire comments really pissed him off.
Yes, they did.
We talked about that, rather extensively about a month ago. I think the overall Anthony Richardson tapping out and some of the off-the-field stuff also really, really bothered him. But, when I hear the unwarranted arrogance, that, to me, is Jim Irsay calling Chris Ballard a blue-chip GM 2 weeks before the season started when nothing on the resume would indicate that. That's where it starts for me. And I've, just felt this way now for the last couple of years. I don't feel like the Colts have enough edginess. There's not enough, hey, this is a guy that maybe doesn't check whatever our blue character trait, but he's been a part of this organization, and they did this, and they won there. Let's bring that different-looking apple into our locker room, and let's see if he can push a button or two. And it might not be kumbaya and we're all holding hands singing Wheels on the Bus, but you know what? It might be needed. It might be necessary. I don't know if every single Colt player just thought Peyton Manning was the greatest human being in the world in terms of, hey, he's my best friend and I love, talking with them, and we break meetings early and we go play golf at, Eagle Creek. No. But again, I think there is a natural edginess, and maybe Bill Polian created some of that, if you want to go back to that era, that I just don't think is there.
Well, they think the opposite. They don't want to bring it.
Right.
They don't want to bring it anybody.
They are afraid of ruffling feathers.
Oh, I mean, they think so the opposite, that they leave. I mean, we had a caller last hour. I mean, they'll leave $10, $20 million instead of going out and getting someone in the secondary who can tackle Malik Neighbors. We don't need that. We have a 7th rounder, and we'll pick up Sammy Womack, who another team didn't want. I just, for me, it's funny. I was talking to a buddy about this yesterday. And, whether you're, you start to hear names, Mike Vrabel or, Brian Flores, who I know the Colts have had interest in before and has had a couple stops since what happened in Miami. And, you think of edginess. When Ballard should go, I mean, we all agree with that, and you can reiterate, I know we've done this for 2 hours, go back on the podcast, but they smell of a team, do the Colts, that need, of course, a regime change, but they need kind of almost like what Cignetti did, and maybe Barry Odom's going to do that with some of his guys, UNLV and other stops, and that is you need other guys that have been in winning programs that do it a different way. And I don't understand why Ballard and the Colts are scared of that, and I don't understand, going back to what we said at 7:05, I don't understand why Irsay, whoever is in charge for all of these years, is just so worried about moving on from a losing regime. Like, you're the one that looks bad when you're the ownership group, and you're not doing that. It is screaming, it is slapping you in the face, all these things, the defensive rankings and the games you won, look who you beat, and the games that you lost, and not making the playoffs, and what has happened the last 8 seasons. I can understand not wanting, like, this is what the Giants are dealing with, not being the franchise that just churns and burns every 2 to 3 years. Well, it's a new coach, it's a new GM, we'll just clean house and do it all again. But that's not what the Colts have done. There would be nobody in the NFL that would come to Chris Ballard's defense if he got 8 years, doesn't win in the playoffs, doesn't win the AFC, and the team is pointing down. I don't understand what the infatuation is. This is a businessman in a business family that I imagine in their lives have made cutthroat business decisions. This is an easy decision. This is a layup decision, guys. This is not a cutthroat decision. I think that's what surprises me the most, is why we even have to have this conversation this long in. I know Colts fans are like, Andy, we've been doing this for years. I understand it. I just don't get why it's even a Chris Ballard should be fired. Of course Chris Ballard should go. It's not even like it's a no-brainer at this point. What is the relationship there that makes it to where you just can't move on? I'll never understand it, and I don't know what they're going to do in the next week. You can convince me they're all back.
I'll go back to something I said about a half hour ago of like, I don't. It smells like almost blackmail when the resume indicates nothing deserving a 9th year, and yet that's how many people view it. And I guess I'm trying to speak to Jim Irsay's language here for just a second. I would think in the last 24 hours, Andy, what has happened? One of the most embarrassing losses your franchise has had in quite some time. That's undoubtedly true.
Yep.
Okay? That has happened.
Yep.
Let's just take the Marlon Jackson clip from Wish TV that Mark Dighton put in the reentry here each hour, and let's take the Pat McAfee comments. In 2 different ways, those are 2 very beloved Colts to Jim Irsay. And what does Jim Irsay care about?
Oh, the old guys.
The only time we've seen Irsay in the last 4 months
is when the guys that have won.
Those guys.
Dallas Clark, Peyton Manning, Reggie
McAfee in
Wayne.
his building. Marlon on the field for the Dallas Clark Ring of Honor. Like, that, to me, the embarrassment of the 60-minute performance yesterday, your beloved Colts being so public with those comments. Again, if I'm speaking to Irsay, like, I've made my feelings well known today. Chris Ballard should be fired, and so should Gus Bradley. But I just want to speak for Irsay, or to Irsay, I guess, here in the next couple of minutes and say, all right, your ex-players say that. Your team has that embarrassing performance with so much at stake. Okay, let's go there. Now let's go a little bit bigger picture. Saturday, again, is the 10-year anniversary of your last home playoff game. That naturally should bother you. I could, again, continue to list off the events Lucas Oil Stadium has last held since your home playoff game. But what about financially?
Well,
let
still
me
a
speak to
business.
Irsay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Every single AFC South team has had multiple home playoff games since you last have. So, again, speak to him there. How about the Colts on primetime?
We laugh about it.
In your own stadium.
Yeah, we laugh about it.
They're an afterthought.
Yeah, we laugh about it. Yeah.
So, even that element of it, of like, oh my gosh, they get flexed into primetime the one time this season, and then they throw up the clunker and the Vikings, and they had benched Anthony Richardson during that. Oh, I'm sure NBC next year is going to be clamoring of like, hey, let's give the Colts a second chance. Let's really get them into this flex situation. Now, let's speak to the crowds inside of Lucas Oil Stadium this year.
Yep.
You want to chalk up the road splits that have been, beyond damning, I think, for some of these games to just, it's a bad year for the schedule, whatever. It's a lot of, close driving distance road teams. Okay, if you want to play that card, explain to me Tennessee last Sunday. The white shirts were everywhere. It looked like and felt like an August preseason game. So if I'm just speaking to Irsay's language, Andy, his pocket, how much money, the lack of the home playoff games, the lack of the primetime eyeballs on your franchise, and then the 60,000 plus that should be in his building each week. That, to me, has got to be beyond bothersome in Irsay's language, along with the embarrassment of yesterday.
Right.
Along with the former players come out. And I'm not even getting to no division titles in 10 years, one playoff win in 8 years. And now you're in your longest playoff drought the franchise has endured in Irsay's ownership. When Robert Irsay passed in whatever year that was, 96, 95, I forget exactly when that year was, you've got to go back to right then, just before Robert Irsay's passing, to find this playoff drought. So Jim Irsay's ownership has never experienced this.
It's been expanded playoffs, too. You mentioned that. Yeah, they went to
playoff
7 teams.
And 7 teams in 2020.
Yeah, they've made it easier. And all these teams, the Chargers and Broncos and Texans, they've all rebuilt. Joe Burrow, the Bengals.
To his language.
I know.
Isn't it time?
It's why it's almost like us yelling and screaming about it. It's not something that we even should have to yell and scream about.
Right.
It should be such a foregone conclusion.
It seems like
that it
obvious
should be easy.
Energy to me.
Let me bring up one other thing. I didn't think I'd have a chance to even say this today, but I was in my own world of hell yesterday. People know, I'm laughing. The Giants really ruined their first pick.
Fandom hell.
And it was bad. It was bad on that side. It was bad on this side. So it was bad Giants. It was bad Colts. It was a debacle yesterday. But and I understand why it's New York City and they're a joke. Like, I get it. But the story yesterday, and everybody nationally, and this is how far the Colts have fallen, was about the Giants. Nobody mentioned, oh, you know what? The Colts haven't done this, and that, and haven't made the playoffs or won the South, or Chris Ballard, or they said, the Colts had something to play for yesterday. They played like on Saturday night the Broncos won the game and not the Cincinnati Bengals. They were still alive. That was going to be the show if they beat the Giants on today, on Monday. Nobody had that conversation because that's how irrelevant the Colts have become. Is that people aren't having the conversation of, man, the Colts had everything to play for, and look what happened. It was all, let's make fun of the Giants, Drew Lock rapping Yeezy and having 5 touchdowns. And again, I know it's big market. I know it's New York. I know it's the Giants. I get all of the qualifiers, but nobody nationally was like, the Colts had a lot to play for. And they haven't done anything in the last 8 years. They had a lot to play for. What happened to the once proud franchise that could fall out of bed and win 13 games in the NFL? That's long gone.
One more thing, going back to the McAfee comments that I want to point to is, guys like Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., they specifically mentioned, hey, I experienced the playoffs in my first year. That was the year they were the 7th seed with Phillip Rivers, the COVID year. They play at Buffalo in that wild card round. And both of them have said very publicly, and I think both of them even said it yesterday, we just thought the playoffs would become an annual thing.
Yep.
And this kind of gets back to you need some edginess and not some just continuity galore inside of that locker room. It is okay to have different apples, guys that come from different backgrounds, guys that experience different cultures, guys that have played for different staffs, good and bad. You know, DeForest Buckner, I think, is kind of the unique example of, like, the 49ers were really bad and really good in his short stint there. It's healthy to have more of that. Both sides of the ball. What side of the ball are Pittman and Taylor on? Offense. You look at that offense, they're all just homegrown guys.
All of them.
All of them. So, again, they don't it's almost like they don't know any better, I guess is what I'm getting at. And this gets back to just, in general, the continuity as gospel mindset that Chris Ballard has preached and acted upon here in the last, I would argue his entire career, but certainly the better part of recent tenure. It just doesn't make sense to me. You can have and want individually high motivated, strong character players. Yeah, that checks. But making sure the 53's got some different flavors in it is vital as well.
It is. You got to build a culture. You got to build it the right way. Let's get to a morning check down. We'll get to your calls. Still on the weekend headlines. I haven't even peeked Mark at the weekend headlines. I assume they're a mess.
Oh, we'll have to clean them up a bit.
I assume they're a mess.
You got a couple individual mentions, Andy.
Oh, well, that's good.
Very good.
It's a rough
go ahead and check
Sunday.
it down, Mark.
Obviously, it's been the big story today. It will continue to be. That's the Colts going on the road, losing to the Giants 45-33. That's your final. Let's get some other voices other than Shane Steichen. Joe Flacco, of course, had to start. He had 330 yards, a couple touchdowns, couple interceptions as well. Here's Flacco yesterday on the loss.
I think it kind of speaks for itself. We had something to play for today and didn't get it done, so.
Yeah, 38 pass attempts for Flacco, probably too much in the end. Zaire Franklin, the team just not bringing it when they had everything in front of them.
When you're playing in an elimination scenario, the level of execution, the level of attention to detail, your intensity, everything has to raise the level. When you play a primetime game, you got to raise your level. When you play in a playoff game, you got to raise your level. And I just feel like we just, as a team, did not raise our level today.
Missed tackles galore. I cannot believe how many, I would argue, simple throws from Drew Lock turned into massive plays. Embarrassment, 9 years since the Giants had scored 40 points. They put up 45 on the Colts. So it'll be the Jags Sunday to end the season coming up inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. All right, speaking of Sunday, it was a very good Sunday on the flip side for the Indiana Pacers. They get one of their finest wins of the season and a big bounce back. Friday night was ugly in the Garden. They play the defending champs again, 123-114. Tyrese Halliburton on the road, 31 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. Andrew Nembhard, he means a whole lot to this team. Did not play Friday, back in action last night. He was critical. I thought Jarris Walker has had a nice recent stretch here. Benedict Mathurin had a big third quarter for this team. Andy, they win the season series over Boston. They'll have the Bucks tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And right now, I think they have survived this month of December.
Agreed.
They had the extra practice time.
Yep.
They clearly have reaped some benefits of it, but they've kept their head more than above water. Even a loss tomorrow, I think the fact that you're sniffing 500 as the schedule does get a little bit easier is critical. You would think the return of Aaron Nesmith should be happening here in the next couple of weeks. So very, very important for Rick Carlisle's bunch to handle this month of December. I thought their toughest month of the year, and they've done that.
Quickly, college basketball. Purdue winners by 19 yesterday, 83-64 over Toledo. Obviously, the big conversation here, Braden Smith was great. 34 points, 12 assists. I'm seeing this. Sam King tweeted this out. It's the second time in Braden's career he's attempted at least 20 field goals. He scored 27 the other time, 34 yesterday. They needed it, so a nice win there by Purdue. Indiana, they survived a 9-point win. Like you mentioned, KB, this was a 1-point game. Indiana in Winthrop in the final couple minutes. Miles Rice, 18 in the win. Umar Ballo, that's the big story. He did not play. He was photographed at a bar on Saturday night.
What was he looking for, Kevin? What'd you say earlier?
I believe I said strange.
He didn't play, and Mike Woodson did.
Hey. Hand is raised.
He didn't want to talk about
Been there before. Swung and missed, but been there. I've stood at a corner of an upstairs Bloomington establishment, hoping, praying, desperation.
I love Balo with his hood on the picture. It's like, bro, you're 7 foot.
Yeah, you're not hiding from anybody.
He's like blending in with the Captain Morgan mannequin
You're 7 feet tall
in the background. Last thing I'll add, I know in different times we've mentioned this morning. Andy had this as one of his goats from the weekend. The passing of the great Greg Gumbel. You think of iconic sports voices in our culture, certainly Gumbel is one of them. That second Sunday of March, and when he would all start to unveil that bracket, honestly, I got chills thinking about it. Again, 79 years old, Greg Gumbel, and certainly we are a sports show, but rest in peace to Jimmy Carter as well, 39th President of the United States, 100 years old. I think you talk to anybody from a historical standpoint, one of the more unique presidents we've had, and perhaps more known for what he did post-time in the Oval Office there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You need to go back on Twitter. You need to find Mike Francesa eulogizing President Carter. He's like, well, I wasn't that good of a president. He went right to it. He gave the hot take.
Once you said Mike Francesa, I was a little worried where you were going with it, and that checks out.
Yeah. Weekend headlines, your calls. 2 more segments to go on this Reaction Monday. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Still got to get to our show headlines from yesterday's game. 5 words or less describe what you just witnessed. To say there are some must-reads would be an understatement. Angela sent this to me a little bit earlier. The last playoff win I remember from the Colts was back in January 2019 when I was in labor with my son. Mark Dykton, your oldest
God bless
is
7.
7.
Going to be 8 in March.
So she has witnessed the Colts' victory. Rosie Bowen will be 5 here coming up. She has not witnessed it. She's witnessed the Colts in the playoffs. She was a mere 6 months old when the Colts played in Buffalo. But yes, Colts at Texans in the wild card round, the T.Y. Hilton clown mask game 6 years ago.
It
And
seems so long ago.
I believe the number is 21 NFL teams have won a playoff game since the Colts last did. I've got the list somewhere. I would assume there will be a team or two that would probably add to that list here coming up in a few weeks.
So Shane Steichen's going to meet with the media today. What are you are you expecting more? I know he took one question, I think, yesterday about his job security and said,
I control what I can control, correct? That was the answer on it?
Except he didn't control what he could control, which is the exact reason that the question was being asked. I always love when coaches say that. It's like, I'll just control what I can control. I'm like, well, you just lost to the Giants. You can't tackle. The offense stinks. You have no quarterback. So you're quite literally not controlling anything,
Yeah, I'll
quite
be
literally
honest.
that you're trying to control.
There are times when I participate in Shane Steichen press conferences and think to myself, I should have just drank water instead. It's just kind of a worthless
Or
exercise.
drank beer and ran on the treadmill like Andy did.
Well, that's
Like
true.
I did, yeah.
To use my vocal cords. By the way, the moonshine, Mark, just excellent. I've
Yeah?
consumed a lot of it here in the holiday season.
I'm sure you have.
I will have a lot more here coming up in the next 48 hours
a good
or so.
For people that don't know, Mark, you got KB. What was it? It was the banana pudding moonshine.
The banana pudding
Yeah.
moonshine
That's
for him.
excellent.
And
It's
then
been
you
excellent. It's gone a lot quicker than I was expecting here, but nonetheless, I'm very happy about that. And Andy, thank you for the gift card there.
Yes,
Look,
thank you.
Gugman Haas Brewing
Oh, yeah.
Company.
You can take the kids there. It's kid friendly.
Great,
It's
great
a spot
kid
that we
spot.
go to probably once every couple weeks.
Sure. I know people have been on pins and needles about what channel the Colts and Jags would be on this weekend. I tweeted last night I thought it'd be True TV. They have put it on Fox, 1 o'clock kick. We've had some people tweet in. Some people thought Nickelodeon.
Slime time, yeah.
We got a Comedy Central. We got a PBS.
By
Any
the way,
other stations, you think?
Comedy Central's website, they did away with it. Mark, did you know this?
No.
So, you used to be able to go on there and find all, the Dave Chappelle shows and stuff like that. It's gone now, apparently.
Oh.
Apparently shut down the Comedy Central website. How
Some
about
would
that?
say it'd be better to do Colts Jaguars as how they've been doing the Simpsons broadcast or the Toy Story where they simulcast. Just do that, but don't actually show the game. Just do that.
I
Toy
guess
Story 5 instead of the game.
we may find out today, or we may just play this the entire week, and we'll have time to talk about this. How do you feel about Anthony Richardson? Should he not even play on Sunday if he's got that bad of a back spasms? I mean, I know it's early in the week, but we've talked about you got to get reps, and
I
he's
literally
gonna
have
miss
not
it.
given that one thought, to be honest with you.
I've only given it a little bit of thought. And at this point, I'm like, if they want to play Flacco or Sam Ehlinger, I'm just going to throw my hands up and say, play Joe Flacco or Sam Ehlinger. That's where I'm at. I need Mac Jones, Sam Ehlinger, Fox TV, Tiki Barber on the call. Let's go.
I think I said to you on Friday, I had some conflicting thoughts on Richardson in regards to playing in the game. And I largely fell on the side of okay, if he's good enough to go, he needs to experience these moments.
Agreed.
He needs the reps, et cetera, et cetera. But I also think, and I don't even know if this is true right now, and I'm probably prisoner of the moment, and probably the emotion from yesterday is still too alive and well in me. I still think him getting healthy for the offseason is the most vital component to the Colts somehow getting this train back on the tracks.
Oh, I mean, you could see he's got a bad back. He's got a bad ankle. He goes out there against the Jags. He gets injured. He's out 2 months.
Right.
He's out a month.
Like
yeah,
that,
I can see it.
What is 160 minutes against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 18 really going to do for his career? I think that's where I'm at.
I know.
I hate saying that. I
I'm
don't
with you.
love it when
I
he's
know.
played, 15 games and missed 17 in his career so far. So, but I'm not ready for the Richardson combo. Again, I've made it clear today. I think Gus Bradley and Chris Ballard should lose their jobs. I am a little bit more torn on the Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen fronts, and I get that some people would strongly disagree and say, hey, if you're going to fire the GM, you fire everybody. I'm going to try to individually evaluate all of these guys, but yeah. I mean, do you think Richardson should play? I mean, I guess if he's healthy, he should play. But
I've almost flipped this around where I'm probably more towards you. I'm actually almost on I don't even care at this point. Like, I would have valued these last few weeks, even if they would have been out of contention. Like, if the Broncos win on Saturday and they would have beat the Bengals, which was a great game, and, again, another team, the Broncos, that has rebuilt while the Colts have been in the middle. I was strong on no. I want to see him against the Giants. I want to see him against Jacksonville. The season is about reps. I need him to get reps. At this point, it's such a mess. By the way, you mentioned, I think it is 16 games. Actually, let me go. I need to add this up. Can I add this up real quick? Because I actually did this math yesterday on Anthony Richardson. 33 total games. So
played
Sunday will
15, missed 18. Is that correct?
AR has missed 18 games. He's
16 due to injury.
He's left early and didn't return in 3 games, and he's played in 12 games in full. That is the current tally. Again, he's missed 18 games, and yes, injury and then the 2 suspension. He's left early and didn't return in 3 games. So you think of Houston last year, you think of the Steeler game this season, and there's another one in there, and that he's played 12 games in full. And I counted last year's Jacksonville game that, remember, he got injured right at the very end, and he didn't come back, but I gave him that one because they were down, and, I don't know how much they wanted to push the whole envelope. I don't know. There you go. Those are the numbers.
At the start of the year, I said, 6 answers the Colts must find this season. My Anthony Richardson related one was, when you get to the end of year 2, do you sit here and say, we still want to pay him big money? I know it's not really like a concrete answer, but again, just to go over things with Richardson, his contract, every first-round pick gets a 4-year deal. The team gets a 5th-year team option on that player. You don't make a decision on the 5th-year option until after year 3. So for Richardson, that would be after next season. So we're still one full kind of, technically it's in the spring. So we're like 15, 17 months away from the first financial decision on Anthony Richardson. That would increase his contract significantly for that 5th year. Right now, the answer to that question, do you still want to pay him big money?
Oh, it's an easy one right now.
Is a no.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not even close.
So that is, now again, it is a no. I still am not saying drive the Uber to the airport and you never see him again. I'm not there with Richardson, but the answer right now is a no. And again, the answer is a no on several levels. Can he accurately throw the football at the NFL level? No. And then secondly, can you run an effective offense and keep him healthy? I mean, once again, I don't want this to sound like I'm calling him soft, but there is part of me that sits there, and I don't know, maybe it's because I was watching Jaden Daniels last night. Every time I looked up, I'm like, gosh, Jaden Daniels is a string bean. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, C.J. Stroud, Caleb Williams, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert. And all these guys have played every game. And here's Richardson, who is bigger than all of them.
The only quarterback I can think of that we talk about like this is Tua, and he's concussion issues. It's Tua. He's the only one where we do this dance where it's, he misses 5-6 games.
It's just like, why can't he stay healthy? Like, that's the question. To boil it down to a very simple question, why can't he stay healthy when he's 6'5" and 245?
I know.
Hell, he's bigger than that. He's like 255.
And he's running, but he's not running that much.
And, that question can't be extinguished.
No.
It hasn't. I mean, has he quieted it a bit here in year 2? Sure, I guess.
Maybe
4 games missed due to injury. If he misses Sunday, is not like the end of the world. But when you tack it on to what happened year 1, and moving forward, you're going to continue to run it. Like, clearly, you've ran him a lot more here lately. You're probably going to continue to do that. That question is going nowhere, and it continues to be on the list with several other questions.
And he's not taking the hits that some of those other quarterbacks, not Lamar Jackson, but some of those other quarterbacks are taking. Nick and Todd, you've hung on a long time. We'll get to you after the break. Plus, weekend headlines, final segment of the show, wake-up call on this Monday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
I think our 3-hour ratio of positivity versus negativity has been quite one-sided. I do want to make sure I sneak in one more time. I did think yesterday, I thought Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce gave some great efforts. I thought probably their best combined game of the season. Statistically, you see them both over 100. That certainly points to it, but I thought they made some big plays down the field, and, if their defensive teammates could tackle, it's probably a slightly different tune this morning.
Things could be a little bit different.
I'd probably rather put Pittman out there on defense and have him tackle than some of those others.
No kidding. I tell you, just the.
By the way, I'm not kidding on that.
I know
I
you're
legitimately
not.
think Michael Pittman Jr. would tackle better.
There's just little plays in that game, it's around midfield and Devin Singletary gets the ball and he gets hit at about 2 yards past the line of scrimmage.
Oh, is that the one? Then he kept going for 10 more.
He kept going. He got 13 yards out of the play.
I mean, look at
it's like what?
I mean, Neighbors' first touchdown, 3rd and 14 screen. What? 3 missed tackles? Score. Slayton, 3rd and 8, catches a little simple dig route. Nick Cross, missed tackle, boom, gone. What was the other one? Oh, Neighbors' last touchdown,
it was the other one. Yeah,
was that the comeback?
That was the comeback where Kenny Moore just
misjudged
misjudged it.
Kenny Moore and Womack
missed.
sandwich each other. Franklin looks like he's there, he's not there, boom, and then Drew Lock scramble. I think EJ Speed overran it. So there you go.
Even in your positive moment,
I'm sorry.
We spun in negative. So
you led me down that path.
I did well. There's just little plays you forget about. But the Devin Singletary, who is one of the slowest running backs in the entire NFL, carrying the Colts for 13 yards. That's not a play I've seen the Giants make all season long. Honestly, I'm being serious when I say that.
The Colts entered Sunday. Again, this is entering Sunday with 20 more missed tackles than any team in the NFL.
Oh, Lord heavens. How many did they have?
They had 141 entering Sunday. I think it was the Raiders next at 121. I mean, at least 15, right? On Sunday?
It's a good question today for Steichen, but it's up in the double figures. I mean, just the 3 plays that we talked about, there's multiple just on those plays. I mean, there's probably 6 or 7 just on those plays.
20 more missed tackles than anybody else in the league.
It's unbelievable. Let's knock out a couple phone calls before weekend headlines. 239-1070. Nick up next on The Fan on a Monday. Nick, what's up, man?
Hey, fellas. Happy New Year.
You too.
Nick, Happy New Year, brother.
Hey. Well, I'm exhausted, as I'm sure you all are too. You guys have hit on all crucial points today. The business decision-making issue with Irsay. Kevin, you nailed the money. Over the weekend, I had a great call with a colleague of mine who lives in San Jose. And as I was commiserating over this pathetic excuse of a team, I just hear this deviant giggle on his end of the phone. I said, "What's so funny?" And he just says, "Oh, nothing. Just reminds me of good old times." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, just reminds me of certain behaviors of the late Al Davis." And because he's a Raiders fan. And I said, "Okay, you're crazy." But over an Irish coffee, I thought, wait a minute.
That
So I
sounds
did
good.
a little bit of guys, I did a little bit of research. You can call me crazy. I'll explain myself if you give me a second. If you call me crazy, you can call me wacky. But hey, this team has done this to me. I did a little bit of research, and you're right. It's seemingly that every wrong decision has been made by this team. And you bring up the question, well, does he care about the money? Does he care about the reputation? Does he care about the publicity? But no, they got their own PR department. They control the narrative. And furthermore, it's a country club culture. They're soft. Now, here's what I did some research, and I don't know if anyone's even looked at this because we're going on the 20-year mark with Lucas Oil Stadium. And I don't know what Mayor Bart Peterson was thinking when he did this. There's a clause in that lease that says by a certain point in time, I think it's 2030, I can't recall, I had a lot of bourbon going through me that day, that if the Colts are not one of the one of the 5 top most profitable teams or something to that effect, the Ursays reserve the right to break the lease early. This sounds nutty, but you've seen Major League, right?
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm still thinking about an Irish coffee, but yes.
Sounds good.
Continue, Nick.
or banana cream pie moonshine, right?
Yes, amen.
But what did the owner do in Major League?
You drop off? Go ahead.
What did the owner do in Major League?
He left the
team.
The team?
She intentionally made the team bad to move it to Miami. And guys, I don't know what this is, but every wrong decision's being made here, and clear to where our GM is publicly getting on the media and saying, "Hey, if this gets me fired, so be it." With that kind of audacity, And I'm thinking either he's got a bone to pick with Irsay or he can walk around with impunity because he feels that he can do whatever he wants. Something in me says that Irsay doesn't care anymore. And I don't know if you guys have researched this or not, but the Colts are throwing this all away, which says to me, and I'll end this in my five-word term from yesterday, Colts will be moving soon. What do you guys think?
Thank you, Nick, for the call. As always, very thoughtful. Happy New Year to you. In short, I would say no. Obviously, it's a topic that probably deserves a lot more examination and maybe a lot more of a conversation.
The Lucas Oil deal's too good for Jim Irsay, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to examine like CIB stuff and that deal.
They're just being a bad franchise right now. I think that's all it is.
If you look at the three daughters, the oldest one, Carly, we've talked about her a lot. She's pretty much at every practice I feel like I've been at. She is seen on the sidelines a whole lot as well. She seems very, very much ingrained into wanting to continue this operation. I would say her youngest sister, her little sister, I should say, Kaylin, is also heavily involved. I think Kaylin is a great spokesperson for the organization. And the middle one, Casey, I don't think it wants to be as involved as the other two sisters. But I've never gotten an impression that they want to be done with it. I even think one of the three husbands is, decently involved as well. So I don't get that impression. If I'm not mistaken, I believe all three of them born here. Certainly all three of them have raised their kids here. One of them's married to a Foyt. The other, another one's married to someone that grew up in the state. I think sometimes you get in these ownership families, Andy, and some of the ties all of a sudden get out of the community and they start to either live elsewhere or they don't want to be involved with it. I don't get that impression from this generation.
Yeah, I don't see it. The only thing I would say is the NFL teams have moved because they've wanted teams to go to L.A. They've wanted a team in Las Vegas. There's not a destination city that the NFL wants a team in. If there were a city out there, and I don't know, fill in the blank, if LA was still out there.
London?
Well, sure. And you have Jacksonville there, and that makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, I don't see that being the case. I just think right now they're a dysfunctional franchise. I don't think you need to outthink it. I think it's that simple. Last one before weekend headlines. Todd, fire away, buddy. Go ahead.
Hey there. Good morning, guys. Hope you're having a great end to the year, apart from the Colts performances. The last call kind of segues a little bit into what I was wanting to bring up, and that is, earlier this year, the NFL owners voted to allow private equity in teams. What if, in a kind of a worst-case scenario, what if when Jim Irsay finally does transfer ownership over to his daughters, what if one or more of them decide they want to cash out at least their share and sell it to some private equity firm? How does that impact these sorts of decisions with coaches, with general managers, and like the last caller mentioned, staying in the city?
Yeah.
Well,
I guess let me start here.
Go ahead. Appreciate the phone call, Todd.
Not mistaken. Yeah, thank you, Todd. Boy, I didn't think we'd all of a sudden get the tone of the conversations today kind of transferring to this. 10%, right? That's the most the private equity can hold with these teams.
Yeah,
Isn't that correct?
The Eagles just did that. Jeff Lurie, he had new investors held about 8% of the club.
And 10 is the maximum, if I'm not mistaken, right now they can hold. So, at some point, and, unfortunately this time last year, Andy, this conversation became a little bit more prevalent with Jim Irsay's health questions of, okay, what does the future look like from an equity standpoint, the daughter split? If you look at it from a title standpoint, it's probably been over a decade ago, 2011, 2012. All three daughters acquired the title of vice chair / owner to it. At some point, was there a legal, the NFL has on file the succession plans for every NFL team. That is a must for ownership groups. So, behind the scenes, this is well known. You would obviously think from a lawyer standpoint, this has been well thought out. So the private equity point from Todd, fair point. I think up to 10% is the most, though. I don't think any of these questions are super relevant on December 30th, 2024. They will be at some point.
Yeah,
probably.
Just not now. They're just a bad team.
I don't. And I'll just echo one more time. I've never gotten the impression from, I don't get the impression with the Pacers either. But, Steve Simon, he spends a lot of time out in California. If you look at how this will be handed down, and maybe it's a little bit more direct, Herb to Steve versus the Colts and or Roger Penske to his son. If I'm not mistaken, isn't his son primarily in Charlotte? Like, again, that's different to me than the Colts. I mean, by all accounts, the daughters and their children are all raised here. So I don't get that impression. I understand the questions.
I understand the question.
I appreciate people thinking outside the box. But today, 2 years before the new year,
and even if they
I need
sell
about 13 Irish coffees.
Even if they sell 5% of the team, they're still going to be the ones making the majority decision. They still are. So that's just the way it is. Mark, let's hit the open. Let's try to get some of these funny ones in here at the end.
Extra, read all about it.
I can't read it. There's no words on it. I'm Ron Burgundy, and this is what's happening in your world tonight.
Ripped from the headlines of the newspaper.
We'll do it live.
Post-game headlines.
Thing sucks.
Ben says everybody must have been sore.
Tyler, upper quartile of rock bottom. Very nice, Tyler. Pat yourself on the back for that one.
Tony Footlong says Colts
Tony.
blank the bed again.
I saw a different Tony said Sweeney's Giants save Colts franchise. Again, that's kind of the relief that I've talked about today.
Right. Jim says locked in Colts or Giants roll Colts. That was well done.
More Pacers talk now.
This kind of fits right in line here. Rob, relinquish power to the daughters. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Boy, there's going to be a lot of that, but I don't know. Colts all locked up. Yeah, all these are good.
Jeff said the Pop-Tarts Bowl was fun. That was fun.
Boy, that was great.
It's good marketing from them.
The sideline guy, what's his name? Kublik or
Cole Kublik.
Yeah,
He
was great.
Oh no, he has fun with all that stuff.
Rocking the Pop-Tart. Hey, we got Irish in a couple nights. Come on.
The Pop-Tarts Bowl does
We
what
had Notre Dame, Georgia.
The Pop-Tarts Bowl does what most bowl games should do and make it fun.
Right.
Make it ridiculous. Don't take yourself too seriously. I like the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
I do too. They've marketed themselves as one of the better ones. So, well, everyone have a good Monday.
We had a ton of listeners today. A sincere thank you. I know it's not the conversation you want, but thank you, everybody.
Jake and Jimmy at noon, JMV at 3. Everyone have a good afternoon.